I knew he was not there, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, man, someone's fucking killed a load of trees in the post office. Someone's killed a load of trees. Let's go, we're filming. Similar things, yeah. Yeah, man, they're all doing good. Yeah, they do all the protests and all that good, man. The army's there, he's done it, and he's doing good medics. It seems that this is now.
Figured out.
Yeah. Everyone's for the bullshit, mate.
Got a mic, yeah.
He can't vote because he's ultra-Orthodox. I can.
You can't what, sorry?
He's ultra-Orthodox, so because it's a holy day, he
Holiest
prefers
day
not
of the year, the
to.
holiest.
You can't
He
say
prefers,
anything.
but I can. I've been evacuated from my flat. I live across the synagogue.
Okay, did you see anything?
So I heard gunshots. And I'm a reporter. I'm a war reporter, so I've been several times to war zones. So as soon as I heard shots, I did say, oh my God, that are shots.
Yeah.
And then we heard plenty of sirens. And then police knocked on us. I tried to go out because obviously being a reporter, I wanted to report. But police wouldn't allow us out. And then later on, police knocked on and evacuated us from our flat. What I can gather, I saw, for example, the rabbi of the synagogue, a very good friend of mine, Rabbi Daniel Walker. I saw on the bottom of his robe, he did have blood, so obviously he had been helping to try and treat the stab. What I gather from my contacts is that there was a ramming attack, also a stabbing attack. I'm still trying to figure out, I mean, because it's the Day of Atonement, it's the holiest day of the year, so many religious Jews don't answer the phone, aren't willing to be interviewed on this day. So it's very hard to get information. I mean, it's horrifying. It is horrifying. Unfortunately, in the last year, we've witnessed a whole load of terror and attacks against the Jewish people. With the Israel-Palestine war, what people don't realise, obviously, is that people are blaming the Jewish nation and attacking the Jewish nation because of what happened in a war in Israel, which is so unjust, so unright, and it's just horrifying. It's just sad. I mean,
And can I just take your full name, please?
Josh Aronson.
Can you spell out your surname?
Aronson.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just gonna check
I do the food. So are you praying on the street, or is this what? Is this what?
Basically, I was on my prayer with that. She goes back to Spain, so I was to
ESTHER, is it?
Yeah, ARONSON.
ARONSON. Like that? Have I spelled it
I'm
correct?
vision impaired, I can't read.
Aronson, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. My husband's the United fellow.
Oh,
Right.
how old are you, Esther?
I am 99. That's how I feel. I'm on my bed. I am 39.
39. And where do you live,
Our
sorry?
wedding, which is actually on 5th October. We live Havisham Court.
Yeah.
But don't mind.
No, you live nearby
We
then.
live across the road.
You attend the synagogue?
No, I attend it only once a year. Because I'm vision impaired, I go there in the night, but I go to a different synagogue. I go to the Great North Manchester Synagogue, I think it's called. Is it called Steam Cross? Yeah, Great North Manchester. Yeah.
So tell us what you sort of, firstly what you saw and heard.
I heard banging. I was on the...
Thought it was a car crash.
Thought it was a car crash. Then we heard the helicopters and the sirens. But to be honest with you, hear sirens every day because we're right near the hospital, so you hear a siren a second.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was a suicidal because you hear these type of things, and then I said, no, it's gunshot. There's been a terror attack.
So
Somebody told you it was a gunshot,
or you just suddenly thought it's a gunshot?
No, my husband and I thought it was a gunshot. I don't remember. Like,
Yeah.
So it was a gunshot and you thought it was a terrorist attack?
Yeah, you just thought it must be a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
There's always talk of like, this
What
is
is
like
it?
viewed as the worst case scenario, like every single year, like the same thing gets mentioned about security and everything. You always think it's never going to happen to you, and then it happens.
This young gentleman said to me, there's been a few heroes today, the rabbi of the synagogue,
The rabbi of the synagogue,
Rabbi Daniel Walker.
and a lot of people, they've saved lives. They could have been a lot worse, and people have saved lives. There's some heroes.
And I
There's some
can't use a
heroes.
microphone because I'm religious.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's some heroes in this community, and I'm sure names might come out, but this could have been a lot worse.
Why was the rabbi here? Do you know what you got up to?
Sorry, just 1 second. Are you okay?
So is there a religious reason?
I don't know if we're allowed to use
I'm
microphone.
fine doing it.
Okay, we're from Sky News. Obviously, we're just trying to kind of...
Yeah, no, but I don't know if I'm allowed to use a
I'm
microphone.
fine.
Sorry,
Swap places with me.
can you just start from the beginning then? What did you see and what did you hear?
So I was praying at another synagogue on the other side, not like on the other side of there.
Town.
Yeah, basically. And what do you call it? Yeah, you have things being said. Gossip. Thought nothing of it, and all of a sudden, rumours starting to go around, and this is what we're being told. And my granddad, he prays at the synagogue, so me and my dad, we bolted it from the synagogue we're at, and we came here just to be with him. Tried to catch up to my grandma, make sure she was safe, and make sure the rest of my family was safe. That was like the most important thing at that time, making sure my family and everyone were okay.
To me, being religious, I want to get to the synagogue that I go to because I'm vision impaired. I need to do it with the congregation. And today's a very auspicious day for us. We're all fasting. We fasted since 6:30 last night. And it's a time of day we just want to be in the synagogue to pray and to ask God to help you for the year ahead. So it's very important day.
You don't need to be in there. Sorry, he's just a kid.
Is he 18?
I don't know. He's, I'm 39.
But you don't want to be...
No, I think it's okay.
Are you okay?
I think it's okay. I'm not
So
making
all right
it.
then, can I just, from the beginning then, can you just tell us what you've seen and what you heard, please?
Yeah.
He's a child from the community.
Sorry, yeah, you able to just say what you saw and what you heard?
So I'm vision impaired. I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
I heard, because I live across the road from the synagogue. I heard bang bang, and then we heard the helicopters, we heard the sirens. But you hear sirens every day because we're around the corner from the hospital. So you kind of hear it every day. It's an everyday thing, you're hearing the siren. And then we thought maybe God forbid it would be a suicidal because we're right near the forest. But then we heard it was gunshot and there'd been a terrorist attack in the synagogue. I personally pray in the Great North Manchester Synagogue. I don't pray here, but I come once a year. Obviously the night it's across the road from me. So
How shocked are you by what's happened?
a bit nervous, but I want to say how amazing the rabbi is. He's incredible. He blessed us all he prayed us all last night in the synagogue that everyone should be safe. So I feel that prayer blessing was something that gave to us.
Do you feel personally very vulnerable and under threat at the moment?
Yes, I do a bit because this has happened on our doorstep, and I just feel like you wouldn't expect it to happen. You know, when we have the Oasis Constant Park light, the whole road's blocked off and the security thing. And today, like I said, being an auspicious high holy day, we've all fasted since 6:30 last night. You want to feel secure. You want to be able to go to places and feel that you can just walk around and do what you can do.
But you worship at another synagogue?
Yeah, it's the Great North and Manchester Synagogue on Holden Road.
How has this affected your community? I know it's very soon afterwards, but how is
Oh, it'll affect the community. There'll be no school, probably, presumably, no schools will be open. It is a time of year where everybody's very busy. We have the holiday of Sukkot, which is Pentecost, where everybody has the huts and we shake the leaves and the lemon fruit. And so it's a very, thank God, a busy time of year. We've just come from the Jewish New Year last week, the fast today, and then next week the holidays again. So everybody's very busy in their own way, doing their own things. And it's a time of year where you just want to be able to get to the shops, feel secure. You want to get to where you need to get to. You want to do things you have to do, places. There's a lot of preparation for next week. So.
And today's a holy day, isn't it?
Today's
How
the high
distressing
holy.
is it, that fact that this has happened on your holy day?
It makes it very insecure because, like I said, everybody wants to get to synagogue. And when you get to synagogue, you feel that prayer of allness and you just want to be together with everybody in the synagogue. And actually happens to be the person who does the prayer today happens to be my husband's brother. So I feel very connected as a family thing orientated, that we're all praying together. And the community, it comes together, it uplifts everyone. It brings everyone to an element of feeling of allness and security of going to the synagogue together, praying together, being together, and, you know, seeing people you don't usually see.
And what do you think, what impact this has had on the community on today, the holy day?
It'll be a high impact. Basically, like I said, there'll be a lot more security alerts. I think a lot of the synagogues are in lockdown. I don't know if all the securities are still open. I don't know if all the synagogues are still open, if you can still get inside or outside of the synagogue. But one person I want to really pray again, I think is incredible, is Rabbi Walker. Because he really, you can see and hear that he's been amazing.
Do you know anything about the people who've been injured and how they're doing?
I've heard they're okay. It happens to be, yeah. One of them's a friend of my family, and I hope, please God, he's okay. Another one I happen to know of as well. Please God, the other two should also be okay.
The fact that you actually know one of the people who've been injured.
I saw him last night, like crying, but I've got to be strong because the family's around. So please God, he'll be better, and the other three will also be okay. I heard there's 4 injured. I don't know if that's now, if there's another news now. But.
And can I get your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Mrs. Esther Aronson.
Could you spell that out?
Yeah, E-S-T-H-E-R.
Yeah.
ARONSON.
Thank you so much.
I think my husband is speaking to someone else before.
Which one's your husband?
The United Manchester.
Are they going down live, those interviews?
Yes, yeah. We have to like the track after somebody will come.
So it allows you to bond with those other people. So sorry, if we just go back to what happened. So that's good to know. What do you think happened after that? No, but what this lady told you.
She said she had a fracture when I on the courtyard Are you ready? Mike, this is the woman. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so can we get your name?
Yeah, it's Chava, CHAVA.
CHAVA.
Lewin, LEWIN.
And what's your husband's name? Sorry, just spell your first name again. Sorry, I don't read my writing.
CHAVA.
Hava.
Yeah.
And how old are you? And there's a shame flats. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Go down Marion.
Harrison S, where are you? S, Harrison S, who else are you with? I need to... Hi guys, welcome back. We have a terrorist attack, Cheetham Hill. Crumsall, just outside Cheetham Hill. Stabbing at a synagogue. That's all I know up to now. The main video will be out tonight on this probably, guys. Not too sure about the victim yet, guys. Don't know much on this. I was local, so I got here pretty quick. So I've not seen any news. Not had time to look into the news. This is breaking news. This has happened in the last hour, I'm pretty sure. It was closer down there to the road before, but they've moved us all back now past this tape. Not too sure what you guys know about this yet, whether it's in the news or not. You can let me know in the comments if you know more than me. 4 injured, 1 stabbed. Munnings, nice one, mate. Yeah, I'm not too sure of all the details, but I know it's a terrorist attack. Right, so I didn't know that someone was shot. The terrorist obviously was shot. Probably shot dead, maybe. Didn't realise how bad this is. I was on my way. I just thought it was going to be a police scene. Helicopter, a few police cars coming this way, but this is massive. The synagogue is just round the corner. Up there, on the left. Not too sure about the attacker yet, guys. Not much in the news. I think it's that fresh, to be honest. Last 40 minutes to an hour, maybe. Maybe I've got it wrong, maybe longer than that, but it seems quite fresh. It's not in the news. I'd expect it to be in the news now, breaking news. So has he been shot dead? Has he just been shot? not too sure digital ID would prevent this. Why? I'm not being funny, by the way. I've got mixed feelings on the digital ID, haven't we? But yeah, no, I just wondered what you mean by that. Maybe you've got a point. I just wanted to know what you meant. No, it's not sarcasm, honestly. I think you should be able to make your point. If we disagree, I'm not being funny with you. You could have a point. You could be right. France has digital ID and it's not working for them. I don't think it's going to prevent things like this. They're willing to do this, they're willing to take out acts like this, aren't they? I don't think it matters just because they're identified. They're identified anyway. Incident 9:30 AM, car driven at public. So yeah, we don't know much on this. I suppose we've got to wait for more news to come out.
Charlie Peters for the latest.
Yes, Miriam and Andrew, we're now being told that a bomb disposal unit is on the scene at this location where there is a widespread emergency services deployment. The explosive ordnance disposal unit is present in Crumpsall at this Heaton Park synagogue. And we're also learning from the Manchester Evening News that hospitals in Salford and Manchester have stepped up security this morning following this stabbing and what appears to be a car ramming incident in Crumpsall, this attack. Now, we're understanding that the suspect involved in this incident is believed to have acted alone. And the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, has said in the last half hour or so that this offender is believed to have died, having been shot multiple times by firearms officers from Greater Manchester Police. So a bomb disposal unit now at the scene. And in footage that was circulating online very soon after this incident, when the police were called at 9:31 a.m. to the Heaton Park Synagogue in Crumpsall, footage does appear to show one man on the ground as two armed officers observe him and then also force other people to step away from behind the fences as they were looking onto the scene. Now, we don't know who this man is or what was on him, but in footage that we've been unable to verify at this stage, there is a reference to a vest. Now, we don't know if this was a viable piece of equipment or if it was a decoy designed to cause maximum fear. We also can't confirm its presence at this stage, but footage that was circulating earlier did refer to some form of vest, and a witness that I've spoken with who was at the scene very shortly after this incident took place also told GB News that they witnessed some form of vest with wires, and that could explain why a bomb disposal unit is now at the scene. Of course, at previous car ramming and stabbing terror attacks in Britain, we have had incidents where individuals wore decoy vests, which led to them being shot as well. So firearms officers did fire several rounds at a suspect who the Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, says is believed to have died. But a bomb disposal unit now on the scene after that response from Greater Manchester Police.
All right, Charlie, that's Charlie Peter will keep us up to date on what's happening. We're going to get the thoughts now of security expert at the University of Buckingham, Professor Anthony Glees. Professor Glees, good morning to you. Good morning. These things are always appalling. It just seems even more appalling that they've done it. This atrocity has happened on the most special, important day in the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur.
Absolutely so. I mean, it's a totally horrific attack. We don't know exactly how many people have been injured. Totally horrific on Yom Kippur, but also getting towards the anniversary, of course, of the 7th of October 2023 Hamas attack on Israel, where 1,200 Jews in Israel were killed, the largest number of Jews killed in a single attack by their enemies since the Holocaust. So I think in many ways, this attack in Crumpsall was the attack we were all fearing was going to take place somewhere in the world around about this time. And I apart from underlining the horror of this, we're seeing scenes of lovely Manchester, leafy streets, and there's this terror taken straight into England's green and pleasant lands. But we're also reminded of the fact that the war in Gaza has served to radicalize many people. We're told the would-be terrorist acted alone. It's always hard to say exactly what alone means, not a network, but that the Gaza war played a role in this. There's absolutely no excuse, quite the reverse. But that the Gaza war played a role in this will mean that many more Jewish communities will be worried. And there are a lot of Jewish people in Manchester, about 30,000 Jews there, making Manchester the second largest Jewish population after London in the UK. Very vulnerable, of course. And we know that some of the new groups of Jews who've come to Manchester are the Haredi, or very Orthodox Jews, who are easily identifiable as being of the Jewish persuasion. So there are lots and lots of sitting targets. As I say, 30,000 Jews in Manchester, a tradition of assimilation, in Manchester in the sense that they've contributed to the life of the city, indeed to the wealth of the city for many years. And on the whole, over the course of 100 years or so, very little overt anti-Semitism and, of course, no terror at all. So this is horrifying. I think the fact the Prime Minister is leaving an important meeting in Denmark on security to fly back tells us that he takes this very seriously indeed, as he should. There's just one thing that one should say. People like me, looking at the scenes you're showing so revealingly, will feel the cops were there very, very quickly. Clearly, we'll need to see that.
Well, Professor Glees, you just mentioned that Sir Keir Starmer is on his way back from this international meeting in Denmark. We understand that he is to chair an emergency meeting of the Cobra Group. What kinds of things will they be discussing in that meeting? What kind of precautions will they be looking to take?
Well, I think they will be discussing the fact that we're coming up to the second anniversary of the October 7th massacre in Israel, and that there will be some jihadists out there who will try to use what's going on in Gaza to terrorize Jewish communities throughout the world. I'm sure that people have been thinking about this in the security community. We should also note that the Jewish community themselves have a very well-developed internal security group called the Community Security Trust. And they've done a vast amount of work over the past 20 years to try and keep people in synagogues safe. Now, the fact that this person seemed to break through that, what should be a ring of steel, basically, around a synagogue, that too will be troubling because, of course, the cops can't be everywhere and the Community Security Trust can't be anywhere. And in a wider sense, I think this will be used by critics of Sir Keir's policy of recognizing the state of Palestine.
Their priority is to ensure people receive the medical help they need as quickly as possible, and resources have been sent. Treated 4 members of the public with injuries outstanding.
Michael English, he had a bomb, so they shot him dead. Is that true, guys? It's a major incident, I wouldn't be surprised. Sky News confirmed 4 stab attackers shot by police. Has he been killed?
He's dropping me a pin now, so we'll see what it's like.
So Michael's lying, is that? Come on, guys, we don't need no lies. Serious incident this. If you've got anything to say in the comments, keep it respectful. Keep lies out of the comments, please. Rain of tea, nice one, mate. That's what we want to do in these comments, keep it to the truth. I know most of you will do. injured? Was he a car to do with it, or did it? At the synagogue, yeah. Who like drove into it or outside? Right. Thanks anyway. Stay here for a while, guys. See if anything develops, see if anything happens. I will have a main video out on this.
Hi Charlotte, you're right.
Trying to take like morals into his own hands, you know, as if everybody's evil that's turning up with cameras. That's not the case. Where has he gone up there? Is he ranting at other people? Is there? This is the Crumsall area, guys, just outside Cheetham Hill. Just outside Cheetham Hill. It's not classed as Whitefield, guys, it's classed as Crumsall, I'm pretty sure. Just outside Cheetham Hill. Terrorist attack, Fred. Watching from Newcastle, you alright, mate? Have a walk around the other side, guys, but it's a bit of a long walk, might be boring. Up this way. Not far from Salford, just outside Cheetham Hill. This is classed as Crumsall. Obviously the main video has got a bit more interaction and stuff from when I turned up. A few different angles from round the other side. I walked round the other side, I've checked that out. It was up there close, you'll see it a lot closer in the video. There's some zooming in as well. I've seen people carried out, I've seen one person carried out on a stretcher. Did not look good. Obviously I stayed respectful. I didn't zoom in too much, you know. But yeah, you can see them wheeling people out, so obviously they're injured. Not not decided whether the main video will be tonight or tomorrow, guys. Probably put it out tonight, maybe 7, 8 o'clock tonight, so you can check that out. More content on the way as well. Get out a lot more, guys. I'm gonna start taking this channel a bit more serious. Get out a lot more. Get to police scenes like this, get up close. Thanks to everyone currently watching. I might take a walk around the other side, but you might get a bit impatient because it's right round that street, right round to the other side. No quicker way. Suppose I could try saying I live at number 2 over there. Nothing like that, would it? Who he is? Right, do they know? Yeah. Oh, so have you heard different things? Because I've heard a few different things. I've heard that 4 people, I think the guy might be lying in the comments. Right, so 4 injured. Right, so you've heard it's a black person. You've heard this is a black person shot dead. It's hard to say though, guys, because we're here in here. You know what it's like. A few different things go around. Heard a couple of different things, but the main thing definitely 1 man shot dead. I had a feeling this was a major scene, a major incident. There's the helicopters and about 10 cars flying to this direction, so it was obvious it wasn't good. I didn't expect this.
Emergency services wondering exactly what was at the time. Now the details that we have of 4 people injured, around the synagogue and also by stab wounds. You can hear the helicopter getting extremely loud. I believe it might be coming down around the front. One man was shot
helicopters out at the moment, guys. That one behind them out is very low. Helicopter is very low. The main video on this, guys, you can check that out tonight. Obviously that'll be a bit up closer, a few interactions, and that'll be in 4K. Oh, thanks mate. No worries.
Former head of counter-terrorism, Chris Phillips. Chris, clearly a government response, a Cobra response, a counter-terrorism response. Big worries out there in the Jewish community of potential copycat or indeed further attacks.
Yeah, of course, at this moment, we don't know whether this is a one-off attack or whether there's another group of people out there ready to do something similar. So the police right across the country will be paying particular attention to the synagogues in particular. Religious sites generally are a normal focus of attack for terrorists. It's quite incredible just how many attacks have taken place at religious sites. And of course, the Jewish community once again will feel threatened, quite rightly. Luckily, they do use the Community Security Trust, which is their own security teams, which will have been outside this synagogue this morning, and clearly have done a reasonably good job, or a good job.
Chris, with the SAS president, armed police and the Prime Minister flying back for a Cobra meeting, does it lead you to think that there might have been intelligence that something was being planned?
No, I don't think so. What I do think is that this is a highly religious day, the most religious day in the Jewish calendar. The Jewish community are very well aware of the potential threats to them. They take security very seriously, and of course this happens from time to time. It's just an absolute tragedy. But what we should be saying actually as well here is how quick the police responded, and how well they dealt with a threat which could have been even more fatal than it was.
There'll be a lot of speculation in terms of who has carried this out. It will not have gone unnoticed in the intelligence community that there were a series of suspected Hamas terrorists arrested in Germany just yesterday, who the authorities in Germany suspect were trying to carry out some form of terror attack in that country. People will draw a link between these two events.
They will draw a link, and we have got our own problems with 30 to 40,000 people on our terror watch list. There are an awful lot of people to monitor and keep a look on, and of course that's increasing regularly over the years. And policing generally, we don't have the resources to watch all of them. We never will have, but we do know there are some very dangerous people in our societies.
Chris, thank you very much. That's former head of counter-terrorism, Chris Phillips. Now let's go straight back to Charlie Peters with some more breaking news for you.
Well, we can bring you the first image of the suspect, the offender in this case, shared on social media earlier this morning. This appears to be the attacker in this horrifying incident at a synagogue in Manchester. Now, we've assessed this image based on Google Street View as well to verify the location, and this image shared with us from sources online as well, and we've checked with local sources in Greater Manchester to verify this image. Now, the police have said that the man they shot, they can't confirm if he is dead because there are safety issues about suspicious items on his person. But this is the man that we believe was behind this attack this morning, which has left 2 people dead and 3 others in a serious condition. This attack at the Heaton Park synagogue. 3 other victims in a serious condition. A bomb disposal unit remains on the scene. And this man wearing blue jeans, a blue jumper rolled up beyond his elbows, bald with a thick beard and holding his hands out, unsure if that's of any significance. And behind him what appeared to be 2 windows into the synagogue. And then there, beneath his waistline, is the item which has attracted so much concern, not only from the authorities, but also witnesses in Crumpsall who've shared their concerns with GB News. Could that be the device with wires that our witnesses were talking about on the location? Now, of course, at this stage, we don't have an identity, we don't have a motive being discussed, but I think it's of an understanding that we can all agree this is a clear attack on Jewish people on Yom Kippur, but no information has been shared about who this person is, and the police aren't even able yet to confirm that he is dead. But this attacker shot dead by the police, we believe, at around 9:38 this morning, 1 minute after they arrived on the scene. On the most holy day in the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur, a day of reflection that for many Jews in Manchester started with extreme violence and what appears to be an anti-Semitic terror attack. Now, we know that Greater Manchester Police, due to the actions of this man, declared Plato, which means that there was a interoperability action ordered to other agencies that Greater Manchester Police works with and supports, including the health service, the ambulance service. That led to several hospitals in Greater Manchester going on lockdown. That has since been lifted, but this is the image of the attacker that we understand to be in this incident. Blue jeans, a blue long-sleeve top rolled up beyond his sleeves, it seems. It could be a T-shirt. And then also bald with a thick beard and what appears to be some sort of white object below his waistline. This is the object that attracted so much concern, we believe, from police officers on the scene who shot him and told people near the fence to move away, believing that there was a serious risk to others in the area. But that man is believed to be the man behind those 2 people sadly killed this morning at the Heaton Park Synagogue, and 3 others remain in a serious condition.
Now, Charlie, beyond the blue jeans, the dark blue, navy blue, perhaps even black shirt, the thick beard, the bald head, I think it's fair to say that this man looks as if he's of a Middle Eastern complexion.
Yeah, the lighting on the image is unclear, but at this stage it seems highly likely that he is of Middle Eastern background, Tom. I think that's a totally fair assessment. And based on, footage shared and also what eyewitnesses have shared with GB News, that would appear to be the case in this scenario. And he is of a large build. He is of a medium height. But his hands out, and with that, what appears to be the device that attracted so much concern below his waistline as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult to tell from this picture, but it does appear to be, I would say, in his late 30s. And there is some speculation that he is wearing a bulletproof vest as well as a suspected suicide belt. That's the image you can see on your screens there. Obviously, we'll bring you any more information we have as the show and indeed the afternoon progresses here on GB News.
Absolutely, and of course the police will be trying to get more and more confirmation about who this person is, but as Charlie has been telling us, getting the medical professionals towards him is very difficult because of this suspected suicide vest, suicide belt, perhaps. Much more on this, of course, throughout the show as we get it. More information, of course, coming through to us all the time about this incident. But let's get the thoughts now of Jewish News UK editor Richard Ferrer. Richard, this just must be the most terrible time for Jews up and down the country.
Yeah. I remember sitting in synagogue on Yom Kippur on this day in 2019 when there was an attack outside of the synagogue in Germany. And I remember talking to my dad, wondering when this day might finally come here in the UK. And here we are. My heart is broken for the families of the people that have died. This is the darkest day for the British Jewish community in my lifetime.
Obviously, this is Yom Kippur, one of the, the Day of Atonement, the holiest day of the Jewish year. I mean, when you heard this news this morning, I mean, what effect did it have on you?
You know, it's been hard. I mean, British Jews have lived under tight security, unparalleled. People who aren't in the Jewish community wouldn't believe that children have to go to school behind barbed wire and past guards and CCTV cameras. Volunteers patrolling outside, mums and dads standing outside with walkie-talkies trying to keep their loved ones safe inside. One of those people, I understand, is amongst either the dead or the wounded today. And families calculating the safest shul to go to for Shabbat service, or children practicing lockdown drills in their classrooms. That's always been the reality for the Jewish community in this country. But something has broken today. The atmosphere, I think, has changed. And I don't think the Jewish community can look after itself anymore. The rest of the country needs to look after us too now.
Richard, it is just so concerning to see this break out on the streets in such a clear and violent way. I've been looking at the demographics of the area. I mean, Broughton Park in North Manchester, it's 56% Jewish, 57% Jewish, rounding up. It's an incredibly Jewish area. Someone who's gone to this area to target a synagogue, it's a hugely symbolic and horrific attack on a people, not just those who were attacked, but the entirety of the Jewish people. But what's really fascinating about this is that looking at the ONS, I believe this is the census data that I'm looking at here. This ward, Broughton Park, 57% Jewish, is right next door to Crumpsall South, which is 69% Muslim. These two communities are rubbing up against each other, and in a very, I mean, these are two religious minorities living right next door to each other. Two communities that are where you have a high concentration of each in each part.
Yeah, Manchester is the second largest populace for the Jewish community after London, where I am, and Britain, I think there's only 0.4%, 270,000 Jews who have been left to fight this battle alone, while the warning lights have been flashing in recent months and years. Anti-Semitic incidents, I think 4,000 or something like that this year. They have been attacks on property, not people, up until today. And it really was just a matter of time before today happened, the day, as I said, we all knew was coming. And it needs to be a day that Britain finally wakes up and realises the threat, not just to the Jewish community, because if Jews can't turn up at synagogue on the holiest day and pray with their families without fearing for their lives, what does that say about Britain?
You said earlier on, quite poignantly, that Jewish people cannot look after themselves anymore. You need the government, I'm assuming your implication is, to do more about protecting the Jewish community in the United Kingdom. What would you like them to do?
Consecutive Home Secretaries have had the Jewish communities back since 2015. The government, Conservative and now Labour, have funded the Community Security Trust to the tune of something like £15 million. a year, but the Community Security Trust, which is exemplary, keeps us all safe in the community, is doing the state's work for it. I think Britain's now at a crossroads. I think that it's time now for the community to be protected by the state in a way that perhaps it's just been offloading that to the charities in the community. The temperature has changed. Mums and dads are going to be talking now this evening about whether they need to take their kids away from school, whether it's safe to go to synagogue on Saturday while trying not to upset their children too much. These are, I'm going to a bat mitzvah at the weekend. The security at a bat mitzvah is probably now going to be ratcheted up. I mean, this is, I don't have the words to describe the dark turn this country has taken today, and the implications not only for the Jewish community, but for the community and the country as a whole.
Richard, what do you tell your children on a day like today? What would Jewish families be needing to tell? How do you explain what's happened because of your faith?
Well, I'm not religious. That's why I'm talking to you here from home. I'm not in synagogue. I proudly wear a Star of David around my neck, and I love what my Jewish identity gives me in terms of its traditions and history and education and respect for the elderly and all the great things that I think we need now more than ever. But what do I tell my children? I tell them to be safe and to be proud. My kids both go to non-Jewish schools because I think that's an important part of British life. They're proudly secular while being proudly Jewish at the same time. But I will have to obviously sit down with them over the weekend and explain to them there are people like this individual. And I hate to say it, but a lot of the people that take part in these marches every single week in central London that are violently opposed to your existence in their midst.
And Richard, this is such an important conversation to have, because a Jewish identity isn't about believing in a specific God. A Jewish identity, Jews are a people, not a faith. And it's so interesting to speak to you, a secular Jewish guy who is worried because of his ethnic background, not because of what you believe. This is why a definition of an anti-Semitism is an entirely different thing compared to a definition of Islamophobia. If you believe, Islam is a religion, it's stuff that people believe. Being Jewish is not about what people believe, it's about who people are. And I don't think enough people understand the profound distinction that there is when it comes to those two different things.
The British Jewish community is a working example of exemplary secularisation, imbuing the country that hosts them after the horrors of the last century with positivity and with pride. The national anthem is sung in synagogue every Saturday. I'm deeply, profoundly proud of my Jewish identity. And you know what? Prior to what happened in October 2023, I would probably have described myself as a British Jew. Now, because of everything that's happened and because of what's just happened today, I would describe myself as a Jewish Brit. And I didn't want that to happen because, I was born and bred in northwest London. And as I said, my kids go to non-Jewish schools, and I live a secular life because I love this country and everything that it's given me and my parents and my grandparents. But something has broken today, and I think it's speculation is appalling, and I'd like to repeat again my profound sorrow for the people that have died and their loved ones.
Richard, we can hear the emotion in your voice. I mean, whether you are of faith or you are not of faith, do you think this will unite the Jewish community? Do you think it will make you stronger?
The Jewish community is struggling. I mean, the centre ground has eroded in the national conversation as much as it is in the Jewish community. I mean, I'm very down the middle. My paper, The Jewish News, tries to keep a down the middle, left-right balance at all times. But that centre ground, that sensible centre ground has eroded to the point now where there's just extremes not only when you're talking about Israel, Palestine, but when you're just on social media or talking about anything in public life. The common ground that has held us together in this country and has held different faiths together in this country has thinned to the point where it's just a thread now that's about to snap, which is why you've got solutions coming to the fore now that I don't think aren't going to bring people together anymore than the issues we're currently facing. We've got people whose opinions of the world are shaped by anger and grievance and jealousy and ignorance. And I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that we can't disagree politely and respectfully anymore. And when you have something like Israel-Palestine, something so ill understood and something so polarizing, I think it just brings out the worst in people. And it's obviously no surprise to me that this has now happened, 2 years on from an attack on Jews in Israel, which also was timed for a very important religious festival as well. These things don't happen on Yom Kippur for no reason. The person who did this obviously targeted the Jewish community when it was at its most vulnerable, at its most open, and at its most identifiable.
And when Hamas carried out that massacre in 2023 on that religious holiday, it's been widely speculated that that was to destroy a peace process. The new Abraham Accords that were expected to come forward, the normalisation of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia, all blown up by that terror attack. I wonder how much this attack also has to do with the putative peace process that Benjamin Netanyahu agreed to with Donald Trump involving Tony Blair, that offer to Hamas over the course of the next, 48 hours. If Hamas agree to that peace plan, the war ends in Gaza. The war ends in Gaza. I wonder if there are radical Hamas terrorists around the world who do not want that war to end, who will try to create moments of violence and tension so that that war cannot end. I wonder if this can be seen in that context.
We're broadening things out now. 4 hours after what has happened, and of course, that it could be a lone wolf. The temptation will be to downplay it, I'm sure, to say it was one individual, a disturbed, isolated incident. I wouldn't broaden it out to Hamas cells in the UK, or more likely Iranian cells in the UK. And I know GB News has been very on the front foot about exposing that sort of thing in recent months. But it would be a profound mistake to downplay it. I think this is a turning point for, as I said, not just the Jewish community, but for British society at large. I'm buoyed by the fact that the King, the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary, the Mayor of London, everybody's been very forthcoming with their condemnation and sympathy. But if all it's going to be is condemnation turning to sympathy, and then there's no direct action, then I think we'll have failed the victims of this appalling day.
OK, Richard, thank you very much for joining us. That's Richard Ferrer, who is editor of Jewish News UK. I just want to read this comment out from a man, Heath Showman, 50, who was planning to take his son to the synagogue in Heaton this afternoon. And he says, "This is shocking. The worst part is just not knowing who has done this." He added it was only a matter of time, given the rise of anti-Semitism since the October 7 attacks, which we were talking about just now. He says, "I've been coming to this synagogue for 37 years and security has increased every year, but it's been building over the last couple of years. The portrayal of the conflict in Gaza has affected all Jewish people." Harry, who's 18 years old, the son, says, "The hate is always given to Jews when it's the government who is doing this." Strong words there. Please do keep your messages coming in, by the way, at gbnews.com/your say. Certainly, if you want to talk, let your fit. I mean, obviously, on a hard news day like this, we are here to listen to you and to get through as many of your comments as we possibly can.
Absolutely. But now let's turn to the director of the Law and Order Foundation, Norman Brennan. Norman, we've said it before, the police response was quick. this could have been a lot worse had it not been for the fast response of some of those fire-armed officers?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. There are many other areas where, God forbid, this had happened. The police armed response could have been 2-3 times that length away. Fortunately, there was clearly a firearms unit very close to the scene, and within 6 minutes they'd attended and made that split-second decision that no firearms officer really wishes to make, but it's their duty to make a decision to dispatch an individual that poses serious injury or life-threatening injuries and even murder in split seconds. So they've done an exemplary job. But I've listened to all the commentary this morning on this dreadful incident. And over the last 30 odd years, I've sat in front of TV screens like this or in studios on nearly every major incident. I've been a police officer for 31 years and 47 years in law and order. I have never seen so much anger, hatred, and bitterness in my 47 years in that role. Every day, every week, there is hatred spurted. The police are caught between a rock and a hard place. They can never win. And my point is this, is which incident is it that wakes Britain up? Which incident is it that encourages the government to actually recruit the police officers that we need? We're 18,000 officers short from 2009, re the population growth. We don't have the officers to guard every single synagogue. And coming to that point, what does it say about a society where synagogues, where people go to meet like-minded people and pray, are in fear of their life, that they have to have security guards on their doors? We don't have enough officers to protect them, sadly. And I was out recently with an anti-terrorist officer, friend of mine. There are up to 10,000 people on the watch list, varying degrees of how serious they are taking them. How can we monitor 10,000 people? And what he said to me was this. He said, Norman, the people that concern us the most are those that fly below the radar, that we haven't got a clue on. And we've seen recently, in recent years, children as young as 16 have sat in front of a computer and self-radicalised. And he said to me, they are as dangerous as those that can carry a Kalashnikov and maim many people. And we're seeing nowadays that many of these terrorists that are often lone wolves, sometimes they're involved in a group, will use a knife or a car, or this morning, a combined knife and car. How can you stop someone that you don't know is likely to attack and murder others?
Norman, the fact that the SAS were on the scene, armed guards were on the scene, armed police officers on the scene so quickly, do you think there was some kind of prior warning that maybe this was a planned attack?
The anti-terrorist squad and MI5 and MI6 work very close together, and they stop many attacks that you and I will never ever hear of. That may be the case. At this moment in time, it's too early. We can only speculate. But that could well be the case. But when I've just highlighted to you that there are up to 10,000 individuals that we are looking at varying degrees of how serious a threat they pose to us, how can you monitor each one of those? It takes up to 20 officers to do a surveillance on a single target. We put them to bed and we wake up with them. What I mean is this, is we follow them until they go to their home address or an address. We sit overnight to make sure they don't leave, and another team comes on in the morning and picks them up and takes them wherever they're going. We saw about 3 or 4 years ago, somebody was released, I think it was from Wandsworth Prison, and within 2 or 3 days, the anti-terrorist squad knew that he was likely to attack someone. However, the authorities released that individual, and that's exactly what he did. He attacked and killed someone, and firearms officers and officers rushed from everywhere and dispatched him. The time has come for Britain to wake up. I've just told you I've responded to so many of these major incidents. I deal with homicide, gun and knife crime. It's my passion. I've never seen it devastate so many lives. I've never seen so much hatred. And I post regularly on social media, and this is my personal overview of one of Britain's leading law and order campaigners of decades. I love my country. I don't like what it's become, and I don't like the direction it's going. And is today just going to be another soundbite from the government and everybody else, only for tomorrow for all these synagogues and many other areas around Britain to worry about their safety? We've got to wake up, and I keep on saying that. We seem to sleep, and we certainly have sleepwalked into what I would describe Britain now as a type of anarchy.
Norman, just very briefly, lots of people listening to you and watching now are saying, yeah, this is the incident that wakes Britain up. Good question. Lots of people supporting what you're saying there. But when you say wakes up, what do you want? I mean, obviously more police officers, we understand that. But what else does the government need to do to ensure we never see this again?
We need 30 to 40,000 police officers. We need to definitely start recruiting police officers, just like in Northern Ireland and the rest of Europe, with the type of temperament that they would carry a firearm. And we do need to get more and more police officers, and we need a fully armed police service. We need the public to regain the lost respect they've had in policing. I've never seen so many communities that hate each other. We used to live in a country where we looked out for each other. We had moral fibre, community spirit and respect. That is what was the glue that kept Britain great. I'm afraid that glue has come apart. So my answer is we need more police officers. We need the police to reach out to the public to shake the officers of these hands. The majority of police officers are outstanding. And the caveat to all of this, when you shoot a terrorist, you're a hero. Had those officers turned up to an incident where they honestly believed that by discharging their firearm, they needed to shoot that individual, and it was an honest belief, but later a mistaken belief, those police officers would have been hung out to dry. And that's what we all need to work for. We need to support the police. And do you know what? We need to start looking out for each other and start holding their hands out and saying, good morning, hello, how are you? We've lost that spirit.
Norman, I think a lot of people will agree with a lot of what you have to say there, but there's going to be deeper questions, of course, about society in general, about religious extremism, perhaps. All of these different things we'll get throughout the programme. We're going to go over now to Charlie Peters, our national reporter, who has some breaking news for us.
Yes, Tom and Dawn, we can report now that a street about a quarter of a mile down the road from the synagogue appears to be the focus of intense police activity. We've seen armed police standing guard outside of a blue police tape at the cordon on White House Avenue in Crumpsall. A number of police vehicles were parked further down the avenue. The exact property they're attending can't be made out from the cordon, the position that our crew is at. We'll have live pictures from that location shortly as we seek to understand what Greater Manchester Police are assessing with their armed officers standing guard outside a blue cordon at the White House Avenue in Crumpsall. Again, I say about a quarter of a mile down the road from the synagogue. Earlier, we learned that Greater Manchester Police firearms officers were searching various properties around the synagogue, but now there is a specific location about a quarter of a mile down the road where there is intense police activity, and GB News will be live on the scene shortly.
Thank you very much, Charlie. If you are just joining us, we are bringing you rolling coverage of the Manchester synagogue terror attack. 2 killed in a knife and car attack on the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. Terror suspect has been shot by police outside Heaton Park. Synagogue and extra police protection is given to all UK synagogues today. The Prime Minister is flying back to hold a Cobra meeting this afternoon. It's not good news, but we are here for you. Please do get in touch. gbnews.com/yoursay with any comments you wish to make.
And of course, we're on the ground at the scene as well. Now, earlier, our North West reporter Sophie Reaper spoke to the Labour MP for Bury South, Christian Wakeford. Here's what he had to say.
As the community have woken up to the news today, I mean, you see and hear of attacks like this throughout the globe. You don't expect to see it in your neighbourhood, you know, your town, your street. your shul, and I'm friends with the rabbi myself. So actually, waking up and seeing it, I mean, what words do it justice? I think the community will rightfully be in a state of shock, and just like everyone, we'll be waiting for answers, and whether that's what has truly happened or are my loved ones safe. Because today is the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. So with it being Yom Kippur, they can't even use their phone to tell their friend or their relatives or even colleagues that they are safe and they're okay. So really, just if there's one thing out there, it's a reassurance of everything we can do from government, we are doing. I've already spoken to the intelligence minister and the policing minister to ascertain what's going on for what they can say, and most of that is fortunately in the media already. But also to offer that reassurance that actually this has been dealt with from the very top of government, to make sure that my constituents, my friends, my neighbours can feel as safe as they can at the moment. And I told them after October 7th, I would stand by them, I would pray with them, and I would cry with them. And I'll do that again today. But I think at the moment the main thing is we need to get those questions to the answers, the answers to the questions that we're seeking, and mainly just try to reassure everyone we can do, especially with the high holies that we're in the middle of now. But nothing but respect for the police and the emergency services, but more importantly to CSD, so Community Security Trust, it's their job to make sure the community are safe. I'd offer my thoughts and prayers to everyone who's been a victim of this, those who have suffered, those indirectly because it's family members, or those indirect as the community, because when the community feels pain, they feel it together. So actually, I want to be able to put my arm around them, offer what reassurance I can do, and reassure them that we do have a friend, and we are going to look out for them, and whatever we can do, we will do.
Local Labour MP Christian Wakeford there, speaking to our reporter Sophie Reaper.
Yeah, OK. We're joined now by journalist and commentator Jonathan Sakadotti. Jonathan, first, just your thoughts on what's happened today.
Well, it's obviously a tragic day and extremely sad for Jewish people, but also for the whole country to see this kind of terrorism taking place, especially on Yom Kippur, which is the holiest and most solemn day in the Jewish calendar. It's actually a fast day, so people don't eat for 25 hours, and they spend most of that time in prayer in the synagogues, which of course is where this has taken place. And I have to say, while we haven't been told much about the suspect or about the motivation, it doesn't really take a great leap of imagination to think of the likely nature of what occurred. This attack bears all the hallmarks of Islamic terrorism. The method, ramming, stabbing, and potentially a bombing, is grimly familiar for all of us. The choice of a target, the synagogue, on Yom Kippur, suggests deliberate timing that was designed to cause maximum fear, disruption, and harm, both symbolic and physical, to British Jews. And it should be really obvious that somebody who attacks a synagogue in this way, that's not a random attack. It's not a theatre, it's not a shopping centre, not that it's all right to attack those. This is a synagogue, it's a place of prayer for Jews. And all of this comes after such a massive rise in anti-Semitism. British Jews are just 0.48% of the population of this country, and yet we've lived under heightened threat for years. Our synagogues and our schools and our community centres have guards and cameras and fences and entry protocols all the time. You've heard today about the Community Security Trust, the CST. That's a communal charity that Jews set up and that Jews man. It operates a national control centre, has trained security volunteers across the country looking after Jewish community events and occasions every single day. Why on earth is that necessary in this country? Today is in my opinion, it's just the brutal consequence of what so many Jews have been warning about and living with for years, but especially over the last 2 years, with our government constantly saying and doing things which are vindictively designed to criticize Israel, to ignore the concerns of Jewish people, and indeed to bolster groups like Hamas in the Middle East. It's completely predictable that this would happen, and yet, of course, that doesn't make it any less tragic and difficult for us to deal with.
You say this has all the hallmarks of an Islamist terror attack. We've seen before, time and time again, perhaps most notably down in Louisiana at New Year. A car ramming, the police searched that guy's home full of Quranic sort of passages and all the rest of it. Looking at the demographics of the area, Broughton Park, 57% Jewish, right next door to Crumpsall South, 69% Muslim. I mean, it's almost as if we've got the Middle Eastern conflict playing out in the streets of Britain.
Well, I'll say this, there's nothing Middle Eastern about my community of Jewish people in this country, not in Manchester, not in London, not anywhere. We're not Middle Easterners, we're Brits. We're British people and we deserve to be protected. And now if there is somebody who's carrying out attacks, and it's an if, we don't know the details yet, but if there is somebody carrying out attacks according to, say, a Middle Eastern desert-dwelling 7th century ideology, I would say that that is problematic. I wouldn't say there is a problem inherently with minority groups living next to each other. It's quite possible for us all to get along and for us to live comfortably and in fact collaborate and enjoy one another's company in areas, but not if there is a motivation to kill Jews, for example. And I'll say this as well, the atmosphere really has been toxic in this country now for 2 years at least since October the 7th, 2023, since that invasion of Israel. Many Jews have stopped wearing visible signs of their identity. Some who would have spoken Hebrew before in public won't do. Conversations about emigration, which were once not a regular thing, they've become widespread. It's not just an anxious mood. People feel alienated, and this is only going to make it worse. And to hear reassurances from people like Sadiq Khan about extra police in London for synagogues, and reassurances from Keir Starmer coming back to the UK and the Cobra meeting, it all rings so hollow for so many Jewish people, because these are the same people who for 2 years haven't really made enough efforts to stop the rising climate. You know, there is a climate of hate. If there's a climate crisis that we should all be worrying about, it's actually that. If there's rising temperatures that's endangering our lives, it's actually the rising temperature of hate. This is the climate crisis that I want people to be concerned about. Jewish people, and not just Jewish people, anyone shouldn't feel constantly at threat from acts of terrorism like this. And what we've seen going on over the last 2 years in some of these violent marches, violent actions taking place on the street and elsewhere, we've seen Jewish buildings attacked, sprayed in blood, Jewish people attacked. All of this leads to what we've just seen today on the holiest day of the Jewish calendar. And I just don't think it's enough to have these statements of concern and sympathy and empathy from any of these officials. They should hang their heads in shame that we've got to the point where Jewish people have felt this was coming, and then when it did happen to us, we're not even surprised.
Jonathan, very, very strong words. I can hear the anger in your voice, and understandably so. And we are having platitudes from politicians, you know, thoughts and prayers, as we always hear when something like that. Is that going to be enough?
Well, of course, it's not going to be enough, and that's why we go in this country from one terror attack to another, and it's not just Jews who are targeted. That's exactly the point. Thoughts and prayers don't get us anywhere. In fact, thoughts and prayers are a way of distracting from what needs to be done, burying our heads in the sand. You know, since October the 7th, 23, there have been broadcasts on television of hate preachers in mosques preaching literal Jew hatred against Jews, about killing Jews. The fact that those people haven't been charged or put in prison, but others have for tweets and the like, those well-documented news events that we've read about, it just shows you that things are not working across the board against the people who maybe do pose a real threat. And I'm not trying to second guess anything. I'm just saying that they're, you know, on Yom Kippur, Jews killed in synagogue at prayer by somebody who it seems may have had a suicide bomb vest on them. At least we have seen army bomb disposal crews there, and they're afraid to go near his body still when this happened around 9:30. All of these things do point towards one very likely chain of events, one very likely motivation. We will find out in due course, but I think that we can't ignore how this is joined up to, connected to, the result of what's been going on for so long. And it's just about enough of that. People need to stop telling Jewish people to be quiet when they complain about the things that lead up to this kind of violent attack. You need to listen to people when they're warning you, not only when they've already been killed. Jewish people deserve better. British people deserve better. This really should be a turning point. And yet, who believes that actually anything is going to change? Certainly not me.
Oh, Jonathan, thanks so much for putting across your views in such an impassioned way.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will be listening to that and thumping the table, quite frankly. Jonathan Sakadosi, journalist and commentator.
Yeah, OK. OK, now let's go back to Manchester for GB News North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper, who is at the scene in Crumpsall. Sophie.
Well, I just want to bring you an update, Tom and Dawn, from the scene here in Crumpsall. We're at this police cordon, and in the past half an hour or so, we've heard two loud bangs, one about half an hour ago, but one just in the last few minutes here at the scene. And we understand that that is the work of the bomb disposal squad. Of course, we heard reports earlier this morning of a white van arriving here at the scene, marked bomb disposal. Of course, witnesses to the event also saying that they saw the perpetrator wearing something that looked like a suicide belt or vest or something of that ilk. So we are waiting, of course, for confirmation from Greater Manchester Police to try and find out perhaps whether or not that was the case, or whether or not the perpetrator was simply wearing that in order to spread more terror. Of course, as well, in the last half an hour or so, we've also heard that around the corner from here, if you were to walk, Tom and Dawn, just down this road and make your way for about 2 minutes that way, you would walk past the synagogue where the attack took place this morning, and you'd come to another road, White House Avenue, and we're hearing that that has been the source of quite a bit of police activity in the last half an hour. We're hearing the armed police guards stood guard outside the police cordon, and although it couldn't be made out which property was being searched, there has been a hive of activity. So I believe GB News' other team will be there on that scene fairly soon for us in order to try and to find out a little bit more about what's been going on there. But still a hive of activity here. You can still hear the helicopters in the air. You can still see heavy emergency services present here behind us. CST is still on the ground liaising with the local community as well as the local MP for the area. We heard from him earlier, Christian Wakeford. A lot of members of the community out and about now as well, of course, wondering what's going on, waiting for those updates. We of course know that two people sadly lost their lives in the attack this morning, as well as 3 others still fighting for theirs in hospital. So fast-moving, developing story, and we'll be bringing you all the latest lines as we get them here.
Well, Sophie, thanks so much for being there for us. And that latest news there of not one but 2 apparent controlled explosions. Of course, our national reporter Charlie Peter has been telling us that they haven't been able to actually confirm this suspect has been killed, just suspected killed, because they haven't approached him because of that suspected explosive device, suicide belt. Perhaps if that has been taken care of, more information can, in the coming minutes, in the coming moments, be gleaned in terms of who this person is and whether or not they can be 100% confirmed killed.
Yeah, but if you are just joining us this lunchtime, we are reporting on the breaking story of a suspected terrorist who killed 2 people at Manchester synagogue this morning. Pictured what appears to be a bulletproof vest and a potential bomb belt as well. The man is believed to have been shot dead by police, but 2 people have been killed, and it's a car and a knife attack, which has taken place on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. We can bring you now footage of what occurred this morning just after 9:30 a.m. Warning, though, it is distressing. So, well, it is what it is. We are showing it because we think it's important, but it is distressing footage. Have a look.
They've killed him. No, they've killed them. Hell, Lucas.
Everybody else, get back! If you're not involved, move back! Get away! Somebody stay with casualties! Everybody else, he has a bomb! Go away!
He's got a bomb on him! He's got a bomb! Mate, he's got a bomb! Man, he's got a bomb on his jacket, mate! He's trying to go in and now! He's got bombs on him!
Well, there you could see the police telling members of the public to get back, saying he's got a bomb on him, and then the members of the public realising that he had an apparent bomb on him, or as the last man speaking in that video said, he's got bombs on him, perhaps referring to that belt that we've seen in the images that we've shown.
We don't have any confirmation yet, as obviously the police are treating the area very suspiciously, because we don't know whether it is a bomb or not. But police have said that Plato has been declared, which is a national code word used by police and emergency services when responding to a marauding terror attack. That's how they have described it. So Keir Starmer is flying back to the UK early from a meeting of European leaders in Denmark to chair an emergency COBRA meeting this afternoon. He has said the government will deploy additional police assets at synagogues across the country. As I said, a reminder that it is the Day of Atonement, the holiest day of the Jewish year.
Well, let's get some more now with the retired Scotland Yard Detective Inspector Hamish Brown. Hamish, we're looking on our screens at the moment, the live scenes just outside where this horrific attack took place this morning. A considerable police presence in Manchester.
Well, absolutely, and the police have got their hands full, and this is what they're there for, just to do their job. But one of the things they've got to do is protect the public, and I've seen footage of a police officer saying, you know, sort of go away, clear the street, and people are still hanging around. I mean, this curiosity is not going to assist anyone at all. So if anyone has been there or is thinking of going there, don't. Just keep away, leave the police to get on with the job, and if nothing else, it's for your own safety. But Tom, you made a good point just a few moments ago about identifying who the suspect is. Now, this is crucially important, to get a name, to get an address. I know the police are looking at another property at the moment, or as I understand anyway. Find out more information about him. And very simply, they're going to look at the PREVENT programme. Was he on there? If they get an address, that will have to be searched, and there'll be security implications for going in there in case the property is booby-trapped. So they'll have a lot to do, really. And they're going to have a look to see, was the person working with the team, or, as very often, is a lone wolf, just someone who's taken it upon themselves to carry out these dreadful acts. So it is early stages, yes. I think the police are going to be very guarded what they put out. Least of all, they don't want to put out the wrong information and perhaps to cause alarm, distress to other people, not only in Manchester, but round the country. Now, I heard your previous speaker say, you know, Sadiq Khan, London's talking about security arrangements. Of course, terrorist activity, or any other crime for that matter, is not confined to London. It is a nationwide problem. And poor Manchester, of course, they've been through this before with the Manchester Arena bombings. And it will really, really shake a close-knit community. So I know the people in Manchester will be in our hearts, and we wish them well. But if there is information, if his name or identity is put out, if people can come forward to the police, and I'm sure they'll put out a number or some contact details, get in touch. No time wasters. No one being stupid about it. But if you know the person, you know the associates, you know the vehicles the person drives, have they worked? Where were they going?
Hamish, I wanted to ask you about this point specifically, because we have heard in previous attacks and events the police be quite slow to release the name or indeed the ethnicity of the perpetrator or suspect. Obviously, there has been some change in advice in police services across the country in recent months to say that actually information should not be withheld. Information should be made public. How soon would you expect some of that information to be released by the police?
Well, certainly the ethnic identity of the person and maybe country of origin, they'll weigh that up, because the last thing they want, and I think we saw this in Southport going back, where that information was not put out, the wrong people were picked on. In fact, nobody should be picked on in these cases, and there were dreadful public order scenes. So it would not surprise me if that was pretty quick, the origin of the person. The address and other information, they just might want to hold that back until they're satisfied with their inquiries, because they've got a huge amount to do. As I say, an address will be very important, and any associates, was the person connected with a dangerous gang or just someone who took it upon themselves to do these atrocious acts.
Thank you very much. That's retired Scotland Yard Detective Inspector Hamish Brown there for you. OK, now we are going to talk to international security and border control expert Henry Bolton. Henry, an awful story to talk to you about this morning. What's your reaction?
Well, obviously my reaction first off is appalled that this is still going on in our country. And of course, you know, I'd like to talk about people's comments and remarks on it, but of course, you know, one thinks of the victims, the families of the victims, the people caught up in this, the innocent people who have been traumatized by this and will never ever fully get over it, as well as the first responders, including the police officers who were confronted by the individual and shot him. So, you know, it's an appalling situation, of course. But what really concerns me is, as I say, that this continues to happen. The Prime Minister's comments that a policing presence will be stepped up. Look, you know, today is the primary religious holiday of the Jewish community. If the police presence wasn't stepped up already, why not? And I think there probably was. It's just the Prime Minister is trying to throw out placating comments. And I think one of your earlier speakers that you had on was saying that we've had enough of these, you know, sympathetic comments from leaders and politicians and whoever. It is time, high time, past time, that we actually took concrete action to safeguard the community in the United Kingdom. And I'm talking about the community writ large, not just the Jewish community. We keep hearing these comments from politicians that they're going to do something, and nothing actually ever changes. And when you have got attacks like this going on, we don't know the full motive, although we could make assumptions. Assumptions are always risks because they may be wrong. But you know, there are communities in the United Kingdom that have some very serious questions to ask about extremism and radicalism within their own communities, and that needs to be addressed. And I think for far too long, politicians, because they are elected by such communities or because their party or members of their party are dependent upon that sectarian vote, politicians have shied away from taking concrete action to tackle this. And for a long time, I first wrote about this in 2006. The United Kingdom has been importing people from both sides in incredibly intractable conflicts in other parts of the world, bringing them into the United Kingdom. Of course, the Jewish community has been very long established in the United Kingdom, but there are other newer communities that were built up in the recent couple of decades. And we are importing these people, and with them, because we do not require integration and full assimilation and into our laws and loyalty to the United Kingdom and our rules and our laws, we are importing those conflicts with those people. And that is inevitably going to happen. And we've been appeasing, and I will call it that, the Palestinian protests over a long period of time, which sends all of the wrong messages. Our politicians look, even if they're not, they look and portray themselves as being intimidated by the Muslim Palestinian vote in the United Kingdom. And that is dangerous.
Henry, I just want to read one message out, which lots of our viewers are agreeing with, from Cynthia. She says, on the day of the Jewish New Year, Keir Starmer recognised Palestine without any mention of the hostages being released. Then he wished the Jewish community a sweet New Year. Lots of people are very angry about the way politicians have handled this situation recently. As you mentioned, the Gaza marches we saw earlier on, and the fact that Jewish people were scared to come into London.
Indeed, and that's really the context that I'm talking about here. You know, we are allowing our politics to become sectarianized, and that is because politicians have an interest in maintaining the vote base that they have in certain communities in the United Kingdom. And I know that's big picture, but that is the context that encourages people of whoever they may be to take, they can feel more justified by the actions that they take if they're violent or extremist actions. In that context, we have sent the wrong messages, I think, over the Gaza independent or the Palestinian recognition thing. I mean, the failure, abject failure of this government to make that recognition conditional on release of the hostages absolutely outraged me, because it was obviously an attempt at weak, lily-livered appeasement. And, you know, you can't deal with hardened communities which, for no fault of their own, have got a history of conflict, antagonism and violence by being weak and not imposing yourself on the situation.
Yeah.
You can't follow. You have to lead people out of these conflicts.
Now, of course, Henry, as you yourself said at the start of this conversation, we do not know if this was an Islamist terror attack. That has not yet been confirmed by the police.
Correct.
But, of course, it does bear all the hallmarks of one. Henry Bolton, thanks indeed for joining us, international security and border control expert.
Now let's go to GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, who has some breaking news for us.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dawn and Tom. We have had an update from the Metropolitan Police in London in reaction to this terror attack in Manchester, this suspected terror attack against a synagogue in Manchester. The Met Police saying that they're taking in details of the major incident in Greater Manchester. They're still emerging. It will understandably have significantly increased fear and concern in Jewish communities across the UK, including here in London. While there is nothing to suggest an increased threat to London, we have deployed additional resources to the areas around synagogues, other Jewish community venues and in those boroughs with significant Jewish populations. The Met said that this is in addition to the officers that are already deployed in those areas as part of our existing policing plan for the Jewish High Holy Days. We are reviewing events due to take place in London in the coming days in light of this morning's incident to ensure all appropriate measures are taken to provide reassurance and to keep the public safe. And as the Met makes that statement, we should also reflect on the significant resources being deployed in Manchester outside that Heaton Park mosque in Crumpsall, 3 miles or so north of Manchester city centre. Earlier, our Northwest of England reporter Sophie Reaper described seeing the SAS in the area. We have now seen a confirmed image of the Eurocopter Dauphin helicopter, which is the specialist helicopter used by the Special Forces Aviation Unit. So it's highly likely that we had members of 22 SAS, their counter-terrorism squadron, permanently assigned in Manchester soon after this incident. And we do know that the regiment does train in Manchester with that same helicopter being filmed conducting fast roping exercises in May this year in Manchester. So highly likely a deployment of UK Special Forces to the scene today as part of the widespread response after Greater Manchester Police declared Plato this morning, which is their technical response to a marauding terrorist attack. So those effects not just in Manchester but also in London, Dawn and Tom, as they increase their resources to protect Jewish communities during the High Holy Days.
And of course, Manchester, the second largest Jewish population of any sort of urban area in the UK. London, the first. The Prime Minister flying back, cutting short his visit to Denmark for the European Political Community Summit, a summit where he was going to talk about global security, about the illegal migration threats we face, as well as the war in Ukraine. And his visit to talk about many security issues that we face internationally has been cut short by a security issue that we face in our country now.
Indeed.
The Prime Minister will be arriving back in the coming hour or so. But Charlie, I mean, this is to assess a real and present threat.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. And we had reported earlier that there was significant police activity, including armed officers at an address about a quarter of a mile down the road away from this mosque. And we're also seeing now another image of this attacker that I'm sure we will bring you soon, which does appear to show more clearly that he is wearing some form of protection vest and this device with wires below his waist. And he appears also to be holding a knife or some form of bladed article. We'll bring you that image when we can. As you can imagine, during the rush and the panic of this morning, while there were onlookers from members of the public, more images are being gathered and more information is steadily being released on this man, who appears to be of Arab origin, or at least Middle Eastern descent, with a full, thick beard and a bald head. He's of a large build, medium height, and he's standing at what appears to be the doors of the synagogue. There's that image again. You can see on the top right of his shoulder what looks like a strap from a separate image that we've been assessing here in the GB newsroom. That strap appears to be part of some form of vest. Based just purely on what I'm looking at now, it looks more like a bulletproof vest than a stab-proof vest. So thick is the material around it. And he appears also to be wearing a T-shirt underneath that vest. And then just below him, in the second image I've been reviewing now, that white piece of equipment beneath his waist, it's now highly likely, I think, that is the alleged device, be it operational, viable or otherwise, that was the source of that concern. It appears to be 3 white packets taped together in the middle by some black tape and then wires at the top. And that is what one of our witnesses, a source to GB News, was telling us about this morning when they saw this man lying on the ground, having been shot by those 2 Greater Manchester Police firearms officers.
Charlie, I mean, given the fact that he does seem to be appearing some kind of bulletproof vest or some kind of protection, it does seem an incredibly well-planned attack.
Yes, I think so. I believe I share that assessment, Dawn. And we know that the security services, while they have immense and very regular and successful intervention and disruption of organised terror cells, their main fear and what has been a massive cause of alarm to the security services, not just MI5, but also all around Europe, has been these so-called lone wolf attacks. Now, a lot of security personnel don't like that term, wolf, because it gives the attackers a sense of being powerful or impressive people. These lone terror attacks where, because there are limited interactions between the offender and a wider supporting cell or network that is allowing them to sustain or prepare these vile and dangerous activities, they are more difficult to disrupt and deny. But in this case, we don't know if the man had any wider support. But when we do speak about these vehicle ramming and stabbing attacks, they have become a classic and appallingly regular strategy for Islamist terrorists, particularly on the continent. Several car ramming and stabbing incidents in Germany over the last year, which have been reported on extensively in Britain, of course. And also, we do know that with those aligned to the Islamic State terror organisation have favoured this method of attack. At this stage, though, further information about this attacker is unknown.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, thank you very much indeed for that. Of course, we do have a programme in the United Kingdom that is meant to spot the signs of radicalisation. It's
called Prevent.
It's called Prevent. Who better to speak to about the about attacks like this, perhaps how we could prevent them and what we're not doing at the moment, clearly. Well, let's speak to the former Prevent practitioner, Charlotte Littlewood. Charlotte, this appears to be someone who's slipped through the net.
I mean, we don't know anything about him as yet, but this absolutely tragic incident is nothing that is surprising, unfortunately. We've seen a surge in anti-Semitism, not just in the UK, but across the West and world. We had the largest record of anti-Semitic instances since records began in 2023. And in the US, for example, Jews just make up 2.4% of the population, but 60% of victims of religious hate crime. So anti-Semitism has been at an all-time high. And at the same time in the UK, we've seen our counter-extremism strategy and the funding behind it essentially wrapped up. We've seen Prevent almost sitting in abeyance, waiting for the last review, William Shawcross's review, to have those recommendations implemented. And we sort of sit in a position here where our defences feel terribly low, but hate feels at an all-time high, and it is an incredibly worrying time for our Jewish communities.
I mean, it's not that long ago, 2017, and we saw attacks, very similar attacks using car ramming and Arab pedestrians killed with knives attacked on the two bridges in London, on Westminster and indeed on London Bridge. I believe at least one of those was on the Prevent watch list. Prevent didn't seem to, I know, I appreciate the lack of funding, but it doesn't seem to be very good at preventing things.
I think it's quite a hard one to measure in the fact that if someone was prevented from radicalising, you would then never know anything about them. So you will only ever see when something goes wrong. So it's very hard to therefore take an accurate measure of that. But I think sort of coming back to where we are right now in the UK with anti-Semitism and what we might see for our Jewish communities moving forwards is a complete ignoring, I would say, of anti-Semitism as one of the worst threats in the UK for a long time. And I think we've got to the point now where anti-Semitism has become normalised across communities in the UK and to some extent almost taught at university level. So we're at a point now where no matter how well Prevent was doing, we have a mass anti-Semitism issue. We have a convergence of far-left anti-Semitism, Islamist anti-Semitism, and still some strands of far-right anti-Semitism converging, all connecting over the fact that they think Jews are the problem to whatever their problem is they may feel the country is facing. And when I talk about that being taught in universities, I'm talking about the absolute demonisation of any support for a Jewish state whatsoever. That's, support for there being an independent state for Jews is called Zionism. And the very word is now so demonised. The majority of Jews believe in a Jewish state and thereby, by extension, are Zionist. And that has become such a demonised word that we're at a point now where I would say a good section of the general community in the UK would say they are anti-Zionist, vehemently so, and wouldn't really know what they were talking about. And we've been taken there by the far left, and we've been taken there by Islamists too, who really align on this and have somewhat been working together on it. It's a very, very worrying time.
Some violent Islamists, when some attackers, or would-be attackers, I should say, hear the words down with the Zionists, globalise the Intifada is another phrase that we've heard very often on marches. The people that are perhaps prone to attack will hear those phrases about Zionists and about Intifada and think it's their duty to attack Jews.
Yeah, there's an absolute ignorance around these terms, and they've been intentionally put into the rhetoric by Islamists. It's the strategy of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, and the will of Iran to remove Israel from the map, to be able to have a caliphate across the Middle East. And they're using terms that appeal to left sentiments and pulling on human rights heartstrings to forward their agenda, which is to have a Muslim caliphate across the Middle East. It's incredibly manipulative, but it's proving incredibly successful.
I think the government has allowed this to fester. I mean, on one hand, we're declaring a Palestinian state, the Prime Minister did the other week, and on the other hand, Zionism, which is recognising an Israeli state, is evil.
I don't think the government has said in any way that recognising the Israeli state is evil, but yes, swathes of the general public.
But the perception of it is amongst people in this country that it is evil.
The perception, that I think, unfortunately, that is where we are. When it comes to recognising a Palestinian state, I think the reasons for which Keir Starmer did that are really problematic, and the way in which he delivered that was really problematic. But working towards having two states is very important. So it's a great shame that that moment has been lost in this very, I would say, silly narrative that hasn't won us anything and will not bring greater peace at this time.
Okay, well, Charlotte Littlewood, former Prevent practitioner, thanks indeed for joining us and for your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Let's go back now to GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, who has some more breaking news for us.
Well, Don and Tom, earlier I was describing a new image that we were working to prepare for our audience, and we can show it to you now. This is another image of the attacker involved in this morning's fatal incident at the Heaton Park Synagogue in Manchester. Now, this is a much clearer image displaying the device that I believe the police and also the British Army's Royal Logistics Corps bomb disposal unit were responding to, but also in his right hand what appears to be the knife used in the attack. And earlier this morning, Greater Manchester Police referred to 4 people being injured. That's now gone up to 5. 2 have sadly died, 3 others in a serious condition. And they referred to a mixture of injuries caused by both stabbing and also a vehicle being driven into them by this man. And before, from that photo further away, behind the gates outside of the Heaton Park Synagogue, he appeared to be wearing a vest. And here it is, much clearer. It is a heavy vest, a full vest. So that looks more like, to me, a bulletproof vest than a stab-proof vest. And you can see the strap on the top of his right shoulder. That's where sort of a Velcro strap that would allow an individual to get in and out of this vest. You can see that there. So, and also more helpfully with this higher quality image than the previous one we had available, he does appear to be of Arab or Middle Eastern descent with a very thick and full beard. Obviously, growing a long beard is a traditional Islamic practice. And there in his grey tracksuit bottoms, what appears to be a black T-shirt underneath that bulletproof vest, and also that device, viable or otherwise, around his waist. We know that the 2019 Fishmongers Hall attacker, that terrorist Usman Khan, he also wore a fake suicide explosive device to generate more fear, and that is what led to armed officers in London on that day shooting him dead. And it appears to be that a similar event has taken place this morning in Manchester. We don't know if that device was viable. However, our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper was describing to us that she had heard 3 explosions in the last hour, likely controlled explosions conducted by that bomb disposal unit. But that was the image of the man that is believed to be behind that attack, a marauding terrorist incident, as it's been described by the police through their Plato declaration. And that is the move that allows Greater Manchester Police to order its associated authorities and agencies to take on a specific response and posture to this sort of incident. A bulletproof vest, a possible explosive device, shot dead by police moments after launching that horrifying attack on Jews as they commemorate and observe Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish religious calendar.
OK, well, Charlie Peters, thanks indeed for that breaking news there, that new image of the suspected attacker. But let's get the views now of Nigel Tobias. Now, Nigel's a member of the management board of the Jewish Representative Council, a Manchester-based organisation. But Nigel, you're also local to the area. You know this particular synagogue well, and your parents were there this morning.
My parents weren't there this morning, but I do know the synagogue very, very well. I had my bar mitzvah at Heaton Park Synagogue. I was married at Heaton Park Synagogue. My parents are members of Heaton Park Synagogue, and when my mother passed away in the last few months, we sat the Jewish morning shiva at Heaton Park Synagogue. So I know it very well indeed, and very, very upset at what's happened.
Can you, you know, this is very familiar to you. Can you just paint us a portrait of what the community is like that worship at this synagogue? I mean, it seems very much a community synagogue, and people must be in terrible, terrible shock at what's happened.
It's a wonderful synagogue, and I have spent many very happy times there. It's a very friendly synagogue. The congregants are very lovely people, peaceful people, gets on very well within the community. The synagogue has been there since before I was born, and the shock is just incredible. You know, even though it's Yom Kippur, the most important day for Jews, the phone has not stopped ringing. I've been trying to speak to some of my friends that I know go to Heaton Park, and we're actually on the way. So the community is in shock.
And Nigel, we're looking at live pictures of the synagogue now outside. It's got very high walls around it. I mean, the security around all synagogues is particularly strong. I mean, how does that make you feel? It's a place of worship.
I think it's a terrible reflection upon the times in which we live, in that synagogues and Jewish schools have to be protected at such a high level, where the membership has to stand guard, as I will be doing at my synagogue later on today, to ensure the safety of the people going to pray. I think it's shocking, but I think it's unsurprising. The past couple of years, the level of anti-Semitism has been rising, and there is a conflation now that all Jews are considered Zionists and therefore targets.
I was just going to say, Nigel, so what effect will this have on the community? I mean, we hear when awful things like this happen that it does unite a community, it makes you stronger. What would you say the effect is going to be on the community in Manchester?
I think we were united before. I think we'll be perhaps more united. I was in the synagogue last night. And obviously within a few days, it's the second anniversary of what happened on the 7th of October. And we said prayers for the hostages. So, you know, the community has got a wonderful spirit. We are in shock, but we will come back from this. You know, many of us are Manchester-born, very, very proud Jews, and we don't understand why we are being targeted in such a way. My heart goes out to the victims and the families, and you know, I know the Rabbi Walker. My heart goes out to the victims. My heart goes out to the family of the guard that was there protecting Jews on their most sacred day, and his loss of life. And I'm also very grateful to the police for looking after the Jewish community.
Nigel, we know the Prime Minister is flying back to chair an emergency Cobra meeting this afternoon. What do you want to hear from the Prime Minister?
I don't know what I want to hear right now. I think I wanted to hear it many, many months ago and many, many days ago. I think what the Prime Minister has done unwittingly is he has, in many respects, most Jews are Zionists. There's nothing wrong with being a Zionist. It's self-determination for a Jewish state, and it doesn't preclude self-determination for a Palestinian state, which I've basically sought all my life and worked towards. But I think what he has done is he has rewarded Hamas in sanctioning Israel and making Israel a villain, and also, you know, giving a state to Palestine right now at the wrong time. And so I don't know what he can do today. I think the horse has bolted, if that's the right term.
Interesting to hear that you, as someone who's campaigned for a Palestinian state your whole life, think that this was the wrong time for the Prime Minister to declare it at a time when Hamas is still running sort of the one half of the two polities that might form that Palestinian state. We don't want to attach politics to this today, not now. But of course there will have been motivated action that led to this attack. This attack didn't happen in a vacuum, and that entire atmosphere that exists in this country, body politic, wider society, surely that needs addressing.
Well, I think it does, and I also want to reiterate I have worked very hard for a long time for a two-state solution. And there is no doubt at the end of October, I have somebody coming over to the UK on a 5-day speaking tour, taking in London, Manchester and Leeds, who actually was Gazan born. And, together we are trying to find a way forward. So, nobody can doubt my credentials. I believe in self-determination for Palestinian people as much as I believe in it for Jewish people. I just think that the whole debate needs to be framed differently. And that hasn't been the case. It appears as if, one section of the community has been associated with what is going on many, many thousand miles away. And even in our days of prayer, we are not secure and we are not safe in the UK. And as somebody that is a proud Manchester-born British Jew and a proud Zionist that supports a two-state solution, I think these are very, very sad times.
Nigel, thank you so much for joining us, and thoughts with the community. That's Nigel Tobias, who's a member of the management board of the Jewish Representative Council there.
Well, now we're going to remind ourselves of what happened this morning. Of course, this terror attack was caught on film, at least part of it. Now, we should warn that this will be distressing for some viewers. We have cut out the most distressing elements of this film, but we do believe here at GB News this is important to show part of the attack that took place this morning.
We've killed him. No, they've killed them. Hell, everybody else, get back! If you're not involved, move back! Get away! Somebody stay with casualties! Everybody else, he has a ball! Go away! He's got a bomb on him! He's got a bomb! Mate, he's got a... Man, he's got a bomb on his jacket, mate! He's trying to go in and... Now! He's got bombs on him!
That is the footage. Yeah, it is quite astonishing, Tom. And you know what I find makes that so poignant, that particular footage, is just the people who are passing by going, it's just like the shock of, like, this is happening in a quiet suburb in Manchester.
I find it hard to... I mean, people are stood there frozen.
Yes.
Some of them clearly not knowing what to do, but others not following police instructions there.
Because you're in a state of shock. I've been in those situations where it's like, OK, you've got to do this, but you can't quite believe what you're witnessing.
Right.
And of course, let's go live to Sophie Rupert, who's in Manchester for us now. I believe she has a breaking news line for us. Sophie.
Good afternoon to both. Yes, some breaking news from the scene. Of course, in the last hour or so, we've been hearing about that street that's about a quarter of a mile away from this particular police cordon, White House Avenue, where there was a very heavy police presence. Well, the PA news agency has, in the last few minutes, reported that they've spoken to a man who didn't want to be identified, who told them that he saw 2 people being arrested on that road. He said he didn't know the men or which house they were linked to. He said he'd come home after his wife had called him this morning after the incident had taken place. He said they've closed the road and there's a police helicopter just over us. There were 6 or 7 police cars with armed police. So hearing from that source on the ground there that 2 people have been arrested on White House Avenue, which is just a few minutes walk away from the police cordon, around 2 minutes from the synagogue itself. Now, of course, this is an incident, you saying, having shown that footage there, Tom and Dawn, that has really rocked this community. We've seen them gathering this police cordon, shocked and horrified about the news that 2 people have died and 3 more are fighting for their lives in hospital. And this is something that we've seen before in Manchester, we've seen before in the Northwest, and we've seen attacks like this, but we've also seen the communities coming together. Earlier I had the opportunity to speak to the MP for Bury South for this particular community, Christian Wakeford, and this is what he had to say.
As the community have woken up to the news today, I mean, you see and hear of attacks like this throughout the globe. You don't expect to see it in your neighbourhood, your town, your street, your shul. And I'm friends with the rabbi myself, so actually waking up and seeing it. I mean, what words do it justice? I think the community will rightfully be in a state of shock, and just like everyone, we'll be waiting for answers, and whether that's what has truly happened or are my loved ones safe. because today is the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. So with it being Yom Kippur, they can't even use their phone to tell their friend or their relatives or even colleagues that they are safe and they're okay. So really, it just if there's one thing out there, it's a reassurance of everything we can do from government, we are doing. I've already spoken to the intelligence minister and the policing minister to ascertain what's going on for what they can say, and most of that is fortunately in the media already. But also to offer that reassurance that actually this has been dealt with from the very top of government, to make sure that my constituents, my friends, my neighbours can feel as safe as they can at the moment. And I told them after October 7th, I would stand by them, I would pray with them, and I would cry with them. And I'll do that again today. But I think at the moment the main thing is we need to get those questions to the answers, so the answers to the questions that we're seeking, and mainly just try to reassure everyone we can do, especially with the high holies that we're in the middle of now. But nothing but respect for the police and the emergency services, but more importantly to CSD, so community security trust. It's their job to make sure the community are safe. I'd offer my thoughts and prayers to everyone who's been a victim of this, those who have suffered, those indirectly because it's family members, or those indirect as the community, because when the community feels pain, they feel it together. So actually, I want to be able to put my arm around them, offer what reassurance I can do, and reassure them that we do have a friend, and we are going to look out for them, and whatever we can do, we will do.
Well, we can bring you some major breaking news from the scene here now. We've just, in the last few seconds, had confirmation from Greater Manchester Police that 3 people have died. That is including the offender who was shot by GMP firearm officers. They say in a statement, in response to today's major incident in Crumpsall, a loud noise was heard at the scene as specialist resources gained entry to the suspect's vehicle as a precaution. We can confirm 3 people have died, including the offender who was shot by GMP firearm officers. So we now know, just to reiterate, that those 3 people have died. 2 members of the public who were killed in the incident by the offender and the offender himself have now all been confirmed as having died as a result of the incident here in Manchester. Once again, fast developing story. We will continue to bring you live updates here.
Sophie Reaper, thanks indeed for being there for us, for bringing us that sad news there, that 2 members of the public have been confirmed dead now. And perhaps the more reassuring news that the perpetrator has too.
Because there was some doubt about whether he was wearing a suicide belt, and the police were very wary of approaching the body. I mean, if you are just joining us, by the way, we are reporting on the terror attack at Heaton Park Congressional Synagogue in Manchester, which was rammed by a black Kia car driven at speed along Middleton Road this morning, reportedly ploughing into a member of the synagogue security team who was standing at the gates outside. At 9:31 a.m, a member of the public dialed 999, and they were reporting that they'd seen a man wearing all black climbing from the car carrying a knife and began stabbing an already injured security guard who was on the ground. As said, the attacker is now confirmed as dead. This is being treated as a terrorist attack on Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar.
And of course, that police operation still very much active. Sophie Reaper there telling us that there have been raids, people have been arrested in the local area. We don't yet know much about who has been arrested, but this information is coming to us all the time, a developing story here on GB News throughout this afternoon.
And those arrests were just around the corner, just a couple of streets away from where the synagogue was as well. So we are covering this story. We have Sophie in Manchester, and obviously we have Charlie Peters in the studio bringing live breaking updates as and when we get them. So please stay with us. And as always, please get in touch with any of your comments, gbnews.com/your-say.
But let's get some more reaction now with the political commentator Mike Jones. Mike, the Prime Minister is in the air now. He might well have touched down in the United Kingdom. He set off pretty sharpish from the European Political Community Summit in Copenhagen, and clearly is viewing this as a real and present threat.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite clearly a terrorist attack. It's just an act of pure evil, wanton, indiscriminate violence based on nothing more than raw ethnic hatred. And, we don't know the identity of the perpetrator. There are photographs going around online. I can't comment on the veracity of those pictures, but it does bear the hallmarks of an Islamist terrorist attack. I'd be very surprised if that wasn't the case.
That does raise a huge number of questions about Islamism in the United Kingdom. Obviously, we can't confirm that this is Islamist, but as you say, the hallmarks of it, we have seen attacks like this beforehand, stabbings, car rammings, and especially targeted against Jewish people. What does this say about the country?
Yeah, I mean, the country is in a pretty shocking state. And, this is quite personal for me because I was actually an undergraduate student at the University of Manchester more than 2 decades ago. And, I'm very well aware that this city is ground zero for, anti-Semitism and all sorts of extremist ideologies and ethnic rivalries. I mean, one of my first experiences was on campus. I was outside the Students' Union, and there was actually an Islamist organization outside of the union. And, I don't know what organization, could have been Hizb ut-Tahrir or Al-Mujahirun, I don't know. But they were shouting abuse at Jewish students actually walking past. The students were wearing the skull cap. And, I was just sitting there completely flabbergasted. And, my experiences really brought home the fact that diversity isn't always, sugar and spice and all things nice. That we have imported ethnic rivalries and ethnic hatreds, and it's just really, really tragic.
I think we've all got these very similar stories. I mean, a friend of mine, her granddaughter, who's 5, goes to a Jewish school, and she was spat at on the way to school. She was with her grandmother, obviously. And it's like, the government does seem to have ignored this behaviour towards Jewish people until we end up where we are now.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't ignore it. I mean, just look at what's happened in the continent. The last few decades or so, in France, 7 Jewish people were gunned down at a school in Toulouse, including 3 kids and a rabbi. In Paris, a Jewish man was kidnapped and tortured to death by a group of men of North African descent. In Belgium, a French man of Algerian descent murdered 4 people at a Jewish museum in Brussels. And then, of course, you've got Mohammed Merah, an al-Qaeda terrorist, who gunned down several French Jews, once again in Toulouse. And I mean, even in Denmark, there have been attacks against the Jewish population there. And, it does beg the question, how many of these attacks have actually already been thwarted by MI5? MI5 is an excellent institution, and if it wasn't for their work, I'm sure we would have had more of these attacks by now.
What really concerns me there in your list is that you said there have been these sorts of attacks in Denmark, because Denmark has had a very restrictionist and integrationist policy. I mean, they literally have a policy to go in and break up ghettoized communities and make sure that there is integration from every part of society. If even Denmark is facing some attacks, that makes me question what's the answer here?
Yeah, I mean, that attack took place in 2015. It was a shooting at a cultural centre and a nearby synagogue. I think a sort of Jewish volunteer guard was killed there, along with the filmmaker. I mean, this is the thing, immigration policy, it's not just about the first generation who are here and their economic contributions, do they claim welfare and so on and so forth. It's the intergenerational impact, it's about the second and the third generation. And, cultural differences don't completely wither away. And unfortunately, the Jewish community in Britain and Europe is paying the price for this. And unfortunately, I can't see any way out of it. I mean, the state could potentially up security, but I think it's very important to put a lid on the mass immigration policy. Damage limitation should be the first port of call.
We were speaking to Richard Ferrier of Jewish News UK a little bit earlier, and he was saying he's a non-religious Jew, but he sees himself as very British. He says that, you know, many synagogues actually start with the national anthem in this country. It seems to be that Jewish people are just so integrated into the British way of life. It's almost as if this is an attack in some ways on integration.
Yeah, that's an excellent way of framing it, and I 100% agree. I mean, I've just recently moved to Chester, but I did used to live in Middlesex in a place called Northwood, you know, very sort of middle class, affluent area. You know, it's a fantastic place to live in, and I'd, you know, sort of walk past the synagogue on the weekend. And what really struck me is that they always had, you know, security guards outside of the synagogue, and in a completely affluent area. And, you know, I used to chat to the Jewish people who attended that synagogue, and just brilliant people. And it just breaks my heart that they feel that they have to hunker down like this and, you know, hire private security so that they can worship in peace. It really is just such a tragic situation.
Everybody should be allowed to worship in peace. I mean, that the point of religion surely is about peace. And we are getting messages coming in as well from Muslims saying, you know, if it is an Islamic terrorist attack, this is not in our name. This is not what our religion is about. So there is that side to it as well. I mean, because many Muslims now will be thinking, people are looking at me like I think this is an amazing, great thing to happen. Of course they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, these are bad apples, if you like. They're not representative of the majority, but there is a sort of disproportional tendency within certain diasporas for these crimes to be committed. I think, you know, the University of Oslo, the C-Rex Institute there did sort of research on this, and you know, they found that Islamists are sort of disproportionately responsible for anti-Semitic attacks in Western Europe. Of course, you know, I'm not making blanket statements on the Muslim community as a whole, but there is a particular problem with anti-Semitism there. I mean, even, you know, sort of Mehdi Hassan, the left-wing political commentator, actually wrote an article about this in the New Statesman many years ago, and he basically admitted the same thing.
Well, Mike Jones, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about there. There will be a lot of discussion in the wake of this attack, but as I say, we are learning more and more all the time. We can't yet be sure of the motivation, but I think we can all take an educated guess.
I just want to read this quote out from a regular worshipper at the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue, which is the scene of this terrorist attack. He says, "We have faced a tsunami of hatred since October 7. This has been a culmination of something the Jewish community has been fearing for 2 years." And that's Rafi Bloom, who's co-chairman of Northwest Friends of Israel, talking today, a regular worshipper at that synagogue that is the scene of a horrific terrorist attack this morning.
Now, we have taken the editorial decision to show some of that attack at that synagogue, but we must give you a warning that this is distressing content. Some viewers will be distressed watching this. We have taken the most distressing elements out of this video, but here is a portion of the attack that unfolded at that synagogue in North Manchester earlier today.
They've killed him.
Everybody else, get back! If you're not involved, move back! Get away! Somebody stay with casualties! Everybody else, he has a ball! Go away!
He's got a bomb on him! He's got a bomb! Mate, he's got a... Man, he's got a bomb on his jacket, mate! He's trying to go in his... Now! He's got bombs on him!
Yeah, that was the scene at the terror attack of the Manchester synagogue this morning. Let's go straight to GB News national reporter Charlie Peters, who has some more news for us.
Good afternoon, Tom and Dawn. Well, yes, following that attack at the synagogue in Heaton Park, we have had an update from the police regarding the loud explosions heard this afternoon, saying that it was as specialist resources gained entry to the suspect's vehicle as a precaution. They said there's no risk to the public. There's ongoing activity in relation to this major incident. And that live footage we're bringing you now is some of that ongoing activity. That is the White House Avenue, close to Middleton Road in Crumpsall, because multiple witnesses have reported seeing 2 people being led away in handcuffs by officers at the scene. We've had 2 people put into police vehicles as they've been taken away. So you can see some police vehicles further down the road there, and officers standing on patrol, on guard in that area as they continue their activity there. We don't know what is behind those arrests, but it is very close to the synagogue where that attack happened this morning. As it stands, 2 people have sadly died and 3 more seriously injured following the terror attack at the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue on Middleton Road, which is just a few moments up from where that live shot is now, where 2 arrests have been made. And the police were responding after reports this morning that a car had been driven at people and there was a stabbing at the scene. We can also bring you a photo, a more recently acquired image of the man believed to be the attacker who was shot dead by police officers this morning. And the image we have shows him wearing a bulletproof vest, what appears to be a bulletproof vest with a full beard. I hope we can show you that image shortly, with a full beard, bald, and standing in front of the synagogue, holding also what appears to be a knife in his hand outside the location where armed officers responded to an attack at that synagogue. There's that image for you on your screens now. And most astonishingly, there is at his waist what appears to be some form of device. We don't know if it was viable or a dud, but that is the attacker standing outside the doors to that synagogue, 2 windows either side of that door. Previously, we did see what appeared to be faces looking out that door, as shockingly, the attacker was standing just moments away from them, unable to gain access, with prayers starting at 9 a.m. and the attacker arriving at 9:31. But the latest we have, Dawn and Tom, is that 2 people have been arrested nearby at the White House Avenue, where there is an ongoing police presence.
Well, that is just astonishing news there, Charlie, that this actually could have been, had he been able to get in to a packed synagogue, we could have been talking about a mass casualty event. I mean, as things stand, 2 people have been confirmed dead tragically. Well, 3 including the attacker, but that one's not so tragic.
We believe one of the people that has lost their life is a security guard at the synagogue who was obviously very brave in trying to stop this attack. And as we can see from the picture on your screens now, thankfully the attacker didn't get access to the main synagogue. But the other thing about this, Tom, is there a Jewish school very nearby this synagogue, and that has heavy security paid for by the parents every single day, because they live in terror of something like this happening to the little kids at that school.
I mean, it is just astonishing when you speak to members of the Jewish community in this country how seriously they have to take their own security.
It is.
I mean, no one in this country should have to be constantly looking over their shoulder, thinking, what if I'm the next person attacked for my identity?
Yeah, and this applies to all religions, by the way. This is not just the Jewish community here. This is all religions. You should not be persecuted for following your faith in a way of peace and love.
But of course, there is something different about the Jewish identity that isn't just a faith. Because I think sometimes people sort of ask, well, why is anti-Semitism different from, people talking about other religions? And it is different because because you get atheist Jews.
Of course you do.
You get secular Jews.
I think
being Jewish is something you're born into, not something you can't give up being Jewish.
It's not necessarily about the faith per se. This obviously was an attack on a synagogue. However, I think what people are finding increasingly difficult in the rhetoric of today is to separate people who are Jewish to what Israel does. They don't necessarily have the same thing.
Right.
I mean, that is, I mean, I think, you know, it's like, you know, not all Jewish people support what Israel does.
Of course not. And not all Jewish people are you know, supporters of Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, you can be still supportive of Israel without being supportive of the Israeli government as well. I mean, there's so many layers to this.
There are so many layers.
But then so many people they want to view the world in such a black and white way.
Well, yes, and we're encouraged to do so by many of our governments, aren't we? OK, we're joined now by former Met Detective Shabnam Chowdhury. Shabnam, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, a tragic day, Manchester synagogue, terrorist attack. What do you make of this news today?
Yeah, absolutely horrific. And like yourselves, my heart goes out to the families, the victims, the local community. You know, the synagogue is the most sacred place, and today is Yom Kippur. It must be absolutely horrific. We also have to remember that many, many Jews will not have their phones switched on. They won't be on social media because they observe Yom Kippur in so many different ways, and this is one of them. So when people find this out as the day wears on, it's just going to be absolutely heartbreaking for them.
I'm just being told that the Prime Minister has now landed back in the United Kingdom. This is news just breaking now that the Prime Minister has now landed back in the United Kingdom after being in Denmark this morning, cutting his visit to the European political community short, a visit where he was going to be talking about all sorts of international security issues, migration, Ukraine, you name it. But he's now back in this country because of a domestic security issue, the Cobra meeting that he will chair this afternoon. Shabnam, the Prime Minister clearly taking this very seriously indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that he's chairing a Cobra meeting this afternoon means that he will be liaising nationally as well as internationally with the intelligence services to see what, you know, if there was any information, intelligence on this particular individual and what other concerns they may have, what may be coming out. And the police obviously doing their job, the counter-terrorism teams taking the primacy for this, but at the moment there's no suggestion or announcement as to what type of attack it is, and this is going to be a really fast-moving investigation for the police.
Lots of praise for the speed with which the police dealt with this incident. Obviously, this attacker needs to be taken out very quickly because he was literally at the door of that synagogue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this may well have been sheer luck that the firearms officers may have been patrolling nearby in the vicinity, and therefore their reaction to attending the scene may well, without a doubt, would have saved hundreds of lives. That individual was heading into the synagogue where hundreds of people were there, and that was very, very possible. I don't know if you know much about firearms, and I'm not an expert, but I do know that the policy isn't exactly shoot to kill, it's initially shoot to stop. Yeah. But that will change very, very quickly in the event that there is some suggestion that an IED is involved, and therefore the officers took the aim and the absolutely right decision, as I believe, in order to prevent any further attacks. And also,
Shabnam, I'm sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you briefly because we are looking at live pictures now of a street very nearby where this attack took place. There seems to be significant police activity here. Charlie Peters has the latest. We'll be back with you in a second, Shabnam.
Yes, Tom, that looks like a custody van having arrived at the White House Avenue, which is just moments away from the Heaton Park Synagogue where this attack took place. And I'm hearing from our reporter Anna Riley on the ground that the back door of the van has been opened, and this follows reports that 2 arrests have taken place on that street just in the last hour or so. Our reporter Anna Riley saying the back door appears to have been opened and that they were seeing some people being taken away. And there's another police van, as you're seeing now on your screens, another police vehicle on the street next to that location. And there's also a police officer there in basically riot gear on the street. So significant police activity at this area, which has been totally cordoned off. Those people walking down the road previously appeared to be just residents who've been permitted to enter the road. But 2 arrests on that street, another van on the road showing what we assume to be people being arrested and taken away. We're just seeing this footage now as our camera gets into position, showing the back of this van, which does have sort of custody available. There's a man being arrested there, and just seeing if the camera can go around there. So we're seeing a person being arrested now. That man there being detained. We don't know why he's being arrested, but this is happening just moments away from where the synagogue was attacked. There's a white male being arrested and searched by Greater Manchester police officers, and that is right next to the White House Avenue, where where there were 2 arrests previously in the last hour. Just speaking to our reporter on the ground, Anna Riley, she says that she does not know why they are being arrested, and they're being led into the van now. This man, extraordinary drama here as people cycling past to film this moment as Greater Manchester Police leads this person away. We don't know why they have been arrested. But Anna Riley here, a reporter, saying that she doesn't think it's linked to the attack. This man was filming on his phone earlier, so a possibility that he has been sort of interfering with the police work. But either way, he is being led away now. So 3 arrests at that location. This one appears to be a man engaging with police, and the other 2 arrested further down on that White House Avenue, just to the right of that camera shot you're seeing now. 2 people were arrested, and this is a road just a quarter of a mile away, Dawn and Tom, from the Heaton Park synagogue where that attack took place. So yes, that arrest there, we don't know the cause of it, but according to our reporter Anna Riley, not linked to the incident. And police have been advising people to avoid the area and speak to police if they have any concerns, but police there taking that person away. As it stands then, Tom and Dawn, we've got 2 people being arrested on the street we're looking at now. We've had 2 people have sadly died as a consequence of this terror attack on the Heaton Park synagogue. 3 others remain in a serious condition, although we also know that the attacker, who we've now shown more images of more recently, was shot dead by Greater Manchester Police firearms officers. But as you can see, a very erratic and still very heightened tension at these various locations where arrests are still being made.
Charlie, thank you very much. We still have our former Met detective Shabnan Chowdhury with us. Shabnan, quite astonishing scenes we've seen there. The live footage of someone being arrested and put into the back of the police van. Obviously, this is going to be such an important time for the Manchester Force to find out what was going on, to track down suspects, to establish what exactly has happened today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they will be trying to get as much intelligence as they can for this individual. And it may also be possible that there may be those that are known to him that may have seen a decent close-up of him, so that hopefully they will come forward so that the police can act very, very quickly. They will need to know who he is, where he lives, what the timeline was, how he made his way to the location. He has a car with him. He had a car with him, and the counter-terrorism teams are really, really good and quick at gathering a timeline in terms of any kind of CCTV footage. They will already have picked up some form of a picture. And I saw the other 2 arrests that you're talking about, or the one that arrest that you're talking about, may not be connected. It may just be that somebody has tried to go through the cordons or obstruct the police in one way or another, but certainly the police will not be taking any chances. This is a really heightened situation. They don't know 100% that this person was a lone wolf, and that's the other information that they will want to be working on. And I also noted earlier on that the Met Police and other forces across the UK have increased their patrols and officers in and around the synagogues. This is the high Jewish holidays, so they would have already had some form of an increase of officers, neighbourhood officers, but I suspect that they may be deploying firearms officers in or around the vicinity to ensure that they are able to keep the Jewish community safe.
Yes, indeed. And we have seen in previous attacks, and of course this is an attack that we think involved explosives. Those explosives did not go off, and that man never made it inside that synagogue, we understand. But he did have what appeared to be an explosive belt around him. And it reminded me of the horrific bombing of the Manchester Arena Ariana Grande concert in 2017, and the fact that the police over the course of the following days found family members of the perpetrator who had also been involved in the planning of that attack. And I suppose that is an entire possibility in this case too.
Well, I don't want to speculate on whether it's family members or people that are
any accomplice of,
connected to the individual, but absolutely 100% they will be looking at whether there are any other outstanding suspects, whether there's anybody else that they can link to this particular horrific incident, and whether there is any chance that somebody else might be planning any further attacks. So this is the beauty of having the counter-terrorism teams, because they are really, really well skilled, well experienced. They have the resources, they have the skills, they have the experience, and they have all the high-tech digital technology that they can pull together very, very quickly. The police will want to act very, very quickly. And also, I think that one of the things we haven't touched on, but we know that this is going to be coming, is that the public will want to know more about this individual, and therefore I'm hoping that the police will be as transparent as possible, as quickly as possible, taking into account that they will obviously be looking at any risk assessment in relation to any other outstanding suspects. So I think that it will move very quickly, and at the next briefing you may get some more information from the Greater Manchester Police.
And Shabnam, what does it mean for security levels at synagogues? I mean, you're a former Met detective, but in our cities, I mean, in London this afternoon, it's one of the most holiest days for the Jewish community.
Yeah, it's really scary. I can't imagine how people must be feeling. And I think that there will be many that probably won't go to the synagogue because they're so scared and they don't want to have that fear of potentially something happening. I've worked very closely when I was in the Met Police with the Community Security Trust, the CST, who are absolutely brilliant. They have a really super, like a strategic operations control centre, which has access and cameras across the whole of London, across schools and synagogues. So they'll also be working very, very closely with police at this time. But I think, as the Met has said, and I suspect it will be a national issue, sort of UK-wide issue around making sure that there are sufficient local officers who will gather and speak to local communities to reassure them. And then they will have their deployments of potentially firearms teams, or what you call the TSG, patrolling what they consider might be the hotspots, just to make sure that people are keeping safe. So you probably will see an increased number of officers in and around particular areas. If you go to places like Golders Green or Wood Green, you have Stoke Newington in London, high Jewish communities who will be really scared and seeing what's unfolding, and they'll want to be safe as well.
A Cobra meeting, as the Prime Minister will be attending this afternoon, is a highly secure meeting. It's called Cobra because that's Cabinet Office Briefing Room A, a sort of hermetically sealed room that has access to privileged information, secure from tampering, from outside. I mean, secure from international interference, designed so that the most privileged information may be discussed freely. Could you give us a sense of what sort of privileged information the Prime Minister and the senior security executives will be talking about?
Yeah, so I actually was within Cobra meetings when I worked on the Olympics back in 2012, and one of my roles was an international liaison officer. So you have to get extra vetting as police officers. So you don't just go in with your basic vetting. You have to be vetted at the highest levels in order to even be able to walk through the doors, because you would be privy to some of the most highly secure information and intelligence that is shared internationally or nationally. So you'll have screens in the room where you have other people from across UK, and you may need people from different countries involved in that COBRA meeting. So dependent on what they've got already and what there may be that potentially could be unfolding elsewhere that we don't know about at the moment. You'll have people like MI5 or the intelligence services that may be able to provide some very fast time information on what's unfolded. And if this individual is known to police and he has been secured and there's a safe route, i.e. that any devices have been deactivated as such, it may be that they may be able to take either fingerprints or photographs that we'll be able to assist them with any gathering of intelligence. So that COBRA meeting will be a very secure meeting amongst the most, as you say, the most privileged people. And I was one of those back in the day. I mean, the information that we had wasn't really huge, but obviously we needed to make sure what was coming in the future, what we had from the past that may be able to assist any kind of an investigation as serious as this. And it's also about making sure that next few days that we don't have any further intel on, future attacks or anything.
Absolutely, just such an important event, not just because of the loss of life in Manchester, although of course that's desperately tragic. There is a wider importance to this because of the risk to the entire Jewish community across the country. I suppose that's what will be top of the list for the security officials. But
Shabnam, thank you very much for that. And that's former Met Detective Shabnam Chowdhury there, and to talk not just for the Jewish community, but the terror attack threat in the UK. An SAS helicopter has been spotted in the skies over Crumpsall in Manchester, and on board is likely to be the SAS officer currently in command of the squadron assigned to the domestic counter-terrorism role. So we will be bringing you live coverage throughout the afternoon. Martin Daubney follows this show, and Sir Keir Starmer has flown back to the UK early from a meeting of European leaders in Denmark to chair that emergency COBRA meeting on the stabbings, a terror attack. It's more than stabbing. This is a terror attack. Let's not be about the bush here. Yeah. And we will bring you a live coverage of anything we get from that meeting as we have it throughout the afternoon.
Well, now let's speak to the social campaigner and rabbi, Dr. Jonathan Romain. Jonathan, thanks so much for being with us. This must be just the most difficult time for a community, the Jewish community, that has felt so much under strain in recent years.
Yes, unfortunately, that's true. And this is a sort of every rabbi's worst nightmare, that a day of prayer becomes a day of terror. And certainly, we've been living with a sort of heightened security risk ever since the Gaza war or the Hamas attack on Israel and then Israel's response almost 2 years ago. And there's been added security around synagogues. And if you just think of the equivalent, if a terrorist had tried to attack a church on Christmas Day, with a mass gathering, families together, and that's what we're feeling, sort of totally devastated by it, because Yom Kippur is both a sacred day, probably the biggest one in the Jewish calendar, but it's also a time of mass gathering when, whereas you might have 50 or 60 people in a synagogue, instead you've got maybe 400 or 500. So everyone's together, and it's really the worst time for an attack. And of course, it implies very much this was pre-planned. Which is desperately sad. And I suppose what's also awful is that there was just a couple of days ago, just a little bit of hope, wasn't there, when the Trump peace plan was announced? I mean, I know it's probably very imperfect in a lot of people's eyes, but at least it was a plan and a proposal, and there was a glimmer of hope, if Hamas accepts it, that we can stop this awful war. And suddenly we've gone from sort of hope to despair and loss of life.
Jonathan, we had an interview earlier on with someone who said that the hatred the Jewish community has felt is like a tsunami of hatred since October 7. And it was, you know, the security guard at the synagogue in Manchester, who we believe has lost his life, incredibly brave, stopping that attacker getting actually into the synagogue itself.
Yes, and in fact, awful, and that could have been any other synagogue up and down the country. And in fact, in about a couple of hours' time, I'm taking my turn outside the synagogue door in my local synagogue, because we all pitch in, and just to make sure that that sort of first line of defence is secure, because obviously if he had got in through the door, then we wouldn't have been talking about 2 or 3 people, but maybe 20 or 30. There's really nothing good to say about it. The hope is this is a lone wolf and not the beginning of a whole series of attacks. But, it's so hard to detect lone wolves. And, of course, this is going to lead to even more heightened tensions. Certainly in my synagogue at the moment, a police car's just arrived because they're sort of upping the security. It was already at a fairly high level. Now it's gone, right to the top. And it's so sad that whatever's happening in the Middle East has been imported here. And we've tried very hard, not just the Jewish community, but the Muslim community too, to make sure that interfaith relations hold solid. They've been very good for many, many years, but this has been a very testing time because obviously people feel very strongly about what's going on in the Middle East. But really, it's very important to distinguish between the political battle over there and the sort of religious relations here. They are not the same. Jews are not responsible. British Jews are not responsible for what's happening in Israel any more than British Muslims are responsible for what's happening with Hamas. And we've got to try and hold that line to make sure that, yes, we can sigh over the news that's coming out of Israel, Gaza, but we're not going to transfer it here to the streets of Britain.
I suppose this will be seen in the context of attacks on Jewish people and indeed the Jewish state whenever there seems to be a religious holiday. I mean, we only need to look back to the Yom Kippur War or October the 7th itself in 2023. I mean, but all of these seem to be moments when the enemies of the Jewish people want to attack them at perhaps when they're least guarded.
I'm not sure if it's least guarded. We were very well aware, precisely because of your comments, that Jewish holidays are sort of possible magnets for attacks, it's so sad that we have to sort of talk about this because this is about prayer. This is about worship. This is about people praying. It's the Day of Atonement when we're thinking about everything we've done wrong, not just thinking about it, but sort of resolving to do better, whether it's in our own personal lives or in our relations with others. Nothing to do with war or bloodshed or mayhem or explosives. And yet this day of prayer, of trying to be better people and make sure that the world around us is a better place, this has now become tarnished with blood.
Jonathan, what is going to be your message at prayers this evening?
To hold fast to the good things that happen. Yes, this was a terrible event, but as far as we can tell, it was a lone wolf. And the ordinary Jews and ordinary Muslims have so much more in common than divides us. In fact, when there was, for instance, October on the sort of 9/11, just after 9/11, the Imam and I did an exchange. So I went to the synagogue. I went to the mosque and said a prayer for peace in Hebrew, which could have got shot at in some countries in the world. He came to the synagogue and said a prayer for peace in Arabic. And it didn't change the world, but it showed our respective congregations that fundamentally Jews and Muslims here do not have to be enemies. There may be political problems over there, but we're not going to have them here. And a rather nice thing to mention is that a couple of years later, the mosque was being rebuilt, and would you believe it, the builders were overdue and late. So he rang me up and said, look, we're going to have a special event. We can't have it in the mosque because it's not ready in time. Can we hold it at the synagogue? And he knew my name, he knew my phone number, he had no problem holding a Muslim event in the synagogue, and he knew that I would have no problem holding it either. So we've got to remember there are many good ordinary things going on. This attack may get the headlines, but underneath the swirling current at the top of the headlines, there's actually a lot of really good hard and fast relations, and that's what we need to hold on to, and just even more better.
It's just such an important message, isn't it? I mean,
very much so.
Whilst the Jewish faith, the Christian faith, the Muslim faith all seem very different. I mean, they share the same stories, don't they? They share the stories of Cain and Abel, of Adam and Eve. They're built upon a very similar foundational text. I suppose that's why there's so much disquiet over the foundational area of these three great religions. But I wonder, I mean, we're not, of course, casting aspersions on, we don't know the motivation of this. I mean, it's likely, in my view, to be Islamist terrorism, but we do not know that for sure at this stage. Why do you think it is that there is a particular problem, just in the generality of this rather than the specific? We don't see Jewish terrorism in this country, but we do see Islamist terrorism.
Yes, I suppose that there is a strain in Islam, and I'm talking about not mainstream Islam, but the more extremists, that does not accept or tolerate others. I mean, I suppose you had this once upon a time in the Bible, where people were killing each other left, right, and centre. We had it with Christianity in the Middle Ages, when people were burnt at the stake for having the wrong views. Now, of course, Christianity is the mainstay of tolerance in this country, and has been very much involved in open faith dialogue. Maybe the Muslim world, which has always been very self-contained and has only recently come out of Arab countries. It's only recently, in the last 20, 30 years, that Muslims have been a minority in other countries. Maybe they need to go through some kind of reformation that adapts the traditions, the best of the traditions of Islam, to the realities of modern interfaith society. But I would just emphasise that this is an extreme strain. It is not mainstream Islam, which is why we talk about the three Abrahamic faiths, because we all have, Jews, Christians and Muslims. We trace our ancestor as a common ancestor in Abraham. And if you look at the values of the Quran, the New Testament, the Hebrew Bible, they are very similar. And that's what makes this attack even more tragic, because it doesn't really represent Muslims, it doesn't represent Islam, and of course it doesn't do anything at all for Palestinians. If this was a protest for Palestinians, well, it doesn't help them one jot. If you want to help Palestinians, then donate to charities or send food or clothing. Shooting other people in Britain is just so ridiculously stupid. Unfortunately, it's horrendously tragic as well.
Well, Rabbi Dr. Jonathan Romain, thanks so much for joining us and speaking through this terrible day for Jewish people.
Very much. And just in the last few moments, the Prince and Princess of Wales have said in a personal message posted on social media, our thoughts are with the victims and the families of the terrible attack at Heaton Park Synagogue. The fact that this tragedy occurred on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, makes it all the more shocking. We are thinking of the entire community as well as the emergency responders who attended this terrible event. The message was signed W&C.
Well, do stay with us here on GB News. Martin Daubney will be taking you through the next 3 hours. But in the meantime, let's get an update with Charlie Peters.
Yom Kippur should be a day of reflection for British Jews. An opportunity to prepare for the new year and to go forward with a reflection on the year that has passed. But for Jews in Manchester this morning and those attending the synagogue, the shul in Crumpsall, it has been a day of appalling tragedy. And the emergency services from Greater Manchester Police, the North West Ambulance Service and indeed the Special Air Service have all deployed rapidly to that area 3 miles north of Manchester's city centre as tragedy returns once again to Manchester. This city is no stranger, appallingly and sadly, to terrorism. Of course, in 2017, Islamist suicide bombings rocked the country, not just in Manchester, but in London as well, other terrorist incidents there. And this area in Crumpsall also has endured appalling incidents in the past. In in the early 2000s, in 2003, we saw a detective murdered during a bungled raid to detain international terrorists. Just 8 minutes walk away from the synagogue that was the site of this car ramming and stabbing attack this morning. Well, we have heard tributes from the Prince and Princess of Wales. We have heard tributes from the King, and the Prime Minister has rushed back to Britain for an urgent Cobra meeting following this attack in North Manchester. So Keir Starmer landed back in Britain around half an hour ago, and he will return to Downing Street before chairing that meeting. And he had been attending a European summit in Denmark focusing on the continent's security. But it is the security of Jews in Britain that will be at the forefront of this nation's thoughts this afternoon as we await further updates.
Thank you, Charlie Peters. Very good afternoon. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Marston
No, he hasn't got a... Have you got anybody else? No, I'm not going. No point. Sure.
So we did the logical, simple, good faith thing. Instead of loading up a continuing resolution to keep the lights on, to keep the government open so this process can continue, instead of loading it up with poison pills or gimmicks or tricks, we sent over a very simple continuing resolution that every single Democrat in the Senate has voted for in the past, just to keep the government open for the people, so that we could get to November 21st, 7 weeks, to allow more time for this process to play out. That is what happened. Now, the Democrats did something they've never done before. Chuck Schumer has led them all to vote against it. Everybody's been discussing this for the last few days. Why in the world would Chuck Schumer do a 180-degree turn? Because he said passionately, as recently as March of this year, on the same instrument, the same CR, that it would be reckless and irresponsible and dangerous to close down the federal government. Why did Chuck Schumer change his tune? Everybody knows that now. He's trying to avoid a challenge from his left flank in his next Senate re-election campaign. And he wants to avoid the scrutiny that he received for doing the right thing back in March, because the far left and the base really went crazy on poor Chuck Schumer. And so he changed his tune. And now they're trying to pretend it's about something completely different. They have made a decision that they would rather give taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal aliens than to keep the doors open for the American people, to keep vital services, veteran services, health care and nutrition for women, infants, and children. They would rather not pay the troops and TSA agents and Border Patrol agents. They would rather stop services of FEMA in the middle of a hurricane season than to do the right thing for partisan political purposes. It is selfish, it is reprehensible, and it is exactly the opposite of what they have all said themselves in their own words very passionately every day until now. We've been playing the greatest hits loop here on a video right outside the Speaker's office for days. You've all seen it. Make them answer for that. Don't ask the Republicans what we should be doing or what we should be negotiating. I don't have anything to negotiate. I sent them in good faith exactly what they had voted for before. We did not put any Republican provisions in that. And we tried to make this very simple, in good faith, so the appropriations process of the people can continue. Now, there's been a lot of talk about, they say that we're making this up, this illegal aliens receiving taxpayer benefits. It's a talking point, they said. I want to remind you of a couple of key facts. Everybody can remember, I think, back to 2020. In the presidential debate for all the candidates on the Democrat side, you might remember famously they were asked the question, raise your hand, they said on the stage, if you believe that illegal aliens should receive health care paid for by American taxpayers. Every single one of them raised their hand, to great applause in the audience from the Democrats who were there. Those hands included Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Now, what did they do? Did they follow through on that promise? Yeah, they absolutely did. Joe Biden used executive orders, and he expanded benefits, health care, to illegal aliens in his 4-year term. That was an outrageous violation of the existing federal law and of the principles of good stewardship. Those resources are not meant for people who break the law and come into our country. They're meant for U.S. citizens. And so they watered down these health programs. It was terribly dangerous. So we got the majority. President Trump has returned to the Oval Office with a mandate of 75 million Americans, this big popular vote win. The House Republicans received our largest popular vote total in the history of this institution. Republicans went immediately to work. And we passed the one big beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut. And we fulfilled all the promises that we made. One of the key promises that we made, because you all know that the open border was probably the #1 issue in the election cycle, was that we would end that madness. We would cut off resources, hard-earned taxpayer dollars by American citizens not going to reward people for breaking our law and coming over the border. And we did that. The one big beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, included a huge provision. A big chunk of that bill was the health provisions. Now, why are we saying that they want to return and restore taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal aliens? Because that's exactly what they did. When they rejected the clean CR that we sent over, the Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer, filed a counter-proposal. Now, what was in that counter-proposal? You can see it for yourselves. In fact, if you're watching at home, go to my website right now, speaker.gov. Go to the press releases tab, and you'll see it. It's listed right there. Just click on it. I'd like you to turn in your hymnals to page 57, okay? Section 2141. It is there in black letter. They filed this. This is not a talking point. This is what they proposed. They wanted to add, instead of the clean CR that keeps the government open for 7 more weeks to allow us to finish the work, they proposed a wild list of partisan priorities. Among them, they want to return $500 million to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to prop up left-leaning and biased media organizations. We're not doing that. The American people don't want us to do that. We don't need the Corporation for Public Broadcasting funded by taxpayers anymore because we're in their age of ubiquitous media. There's, 200 of you guys here? There's so many outlets. We don't need to do that. We're not going to do that. They wanted to cut, in the Democrats' counterproposal, I want you to read it for yourself, speaker.gov, go there and check it out. They want to remove the rural hospital fund that Republicans fought so hard to put into the One Big Beautiful Bill. We set $50 billion aside to take care of rural hospitals. Why would Chuck Schumer want to get rid of that? I don't know. A lot of those rural hospitals are in red states. You have to decide for yourself what the motivations are here. But they say they're for health care. Why would they want to do that? The other thing that they put in there is very important. And on page 57 in section 2141, not a Republican talking point, read from the Democrats' document themselves. They said that they want to repeal the health provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, why is that so important? Because I want to tell you what those health provisions did. They eliminated all of the taxpayer-funded benefits going to illegals. There was an amendment that was sent over to the Senate to ensure that illegals would not be getting health care paid for by taxpayer dollars. Illegal aliens, okay? 43 of the 47 Senate Democrats voted against that. This is just a few months ago. The bill was signed into law July 4th, and we cut all of that out. Let me tell you what some of those things are. The Democrats' counterproposal CR, the dirty CR we call it, as opposed to the clean CR, would result in nearly $200 billion being spent on illegal aliens and other non-citizens. Let me be specific. This is just a few of the reforms that we put in that they want to repeal and reverse. Number one, a provision that closes the California loophole. Now, that's a provision that's also been adopted by states like New York and Michigan and Massachusetts. Other states have followed, other blue states. The California loophole allows taxpayer-funded Medicaid for illegal aliens. We eliminated that in the big, beautiful bill. Their counteroffer is to repeal and reverse that. That would cost $34 billion of U.S. taxpayer funds. Number two, a provision that prohibits Medicaid from paying more for emergency care provided to illegal aliens than it does for American patients who are disabled or elderly or children. We eliminated that in their counterproposal that they have filed that you can read yourself. They want to repeal that. That would cost taxpayers $28 billion. Here's another one. Number three, they've counterproposed a provision that ends the Obamacare funding for non-citizens. The cost of that repeal would be $91 billion to all of you. Taxpayers, hardworking American citizens would be funding that. A provision that repeals the Obamacare special rule for immigrants. That cost would be $27 billion for taxpayers. A provision that ends Medicaid funding for those improperly granted asylum and parole under President Biden's open borders. The cost of that would be $6 billion. I think that's actually a low estimate. You know, President Biden intentionally opened the border and Kamala Harris for 4 straight years. By some estimates, 20 million illegal aliens came from every country all around the world, and a lot of dangerous people came into the country. And you know what they did? They granted them all asylum. They gave them all this parole status so that they could roll on to taxpayer benefits. We've all been funding that. Republicans said, no, that does not comport with common sense. We're going to do right by Americans and not everybody else. We're not going to incentivize illegal immigration. And that's exactly what Biden and Harris did. It's what President Trump ran on to end, and we did that. It took the president about 2 months, and he closed that border tight. We don't have that problem anymore, but we still got to deal with the tens of millions of people who are here illegally. We're working on that. So the Democrats' so-called reasonable counterproposal would reverse all those common sense reforms I just listed and more. And I don't want you to take our word for it. I don't want you to regard this as some talking point. I want you to go read it for yourselves. Speaker.gov, go to press releases. You'll see it's the first thing listed. Click on the bill and go through it yourself, and you'll see it. The result of all this would be $200 billion at least in taxpayer-funded benefits going straight to illegal aliens. Those are the simple facts. They cannot refute it. We have been making the rounds in all the media and every mainstream media outlet that we can get to over the last few days, and no one can challenge the facts that are on the paper. It's right there for everybody to see themselves. We have lots to say about that, and I'll answer some questions, but I want you to hear from the rest of the leadership team. And our majority leader who's been working really hard on all this is Mr. Steve Scalise. Leader?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as we mark day 2 of Chuck Schumer's shutdown, we know that there is a very straightforward way out of this. And that is for Senate Democrats to join with Senate Republicans and vote for the bill that opens up the government and allows negotiations to continue. Surely by opening up the government again, it doesn't resolve all of our differences, but it allows us to negotiate without Chuck Schumer holding the American people hostage. That's really what's going on here. You know, we had a vote on this House floor 2 weeks ago, and 99% of House Democrats voted to shut the government down. Led by their leader, Hakeem Jeffries, whipped their members to vote to shut the government down. And so they're running around this town right now doing podcasts and trying to be commentators. They're doing everything but being legislators. When they had an opportunity to actually govern, House Democrats voted to shut the government down. And now that the government shut down, they're trying to blame somebody else for what they did. They voted to do this. They can get bailed out by Senate Democrats. The bill is still sitting over in the Senate. And so rather than trying to figure out who to assign blame to, what they should do is go over to the Senate, talk to their Senate Democrat counterparts and say, Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer, open up the government again. And then let's have a negotiation over our differences. President Trump, you saw Vice President Vance as well saying, we will negotiate, but not while you're holding hostages of the American people. There are real differences we can negotiate. You know, they want to talk about all the Obamacare increases in premiums that they caused families. Obamacare is the health care law of the land, and it's leading to higher premiums for families. There are a lot of conversations that people can have about how to fix those problems. Throwing hundreds of billions of new taxpayer dollars to things like funding illegal alien health care is not the answer to that problem. And it surely is not the reason for Democrats to be shutting down the government. And yet that's what they're doing. Some of their own leaders have confirmed that's why they're shutting down the government. And it's unacceptable to most American people who just want the government to work for them and deserve that. And we had a vote on the House floor. You can go look at that vote and see that over 99% of Democrats voted to shut the government down. It's a real vote that we held, and that bill is still sitting in the Senate. We stand ready to negotiate on a lot of differences. We are in a conference committee right now on 3 of the appropriations bills, and Tom Cole and his appropriators have passed all 12 of the bills out of committee. John Thune, to his credit, changed course from the old days of Chuck Schumer when Chuck Schumer ran the Senate and didn't bring any of the appropriations bills out of committee. They're now moving those bills in the Senate, and so we can have a broader negotiation on how to properly fund government, how to properly set priorities over funding government, which, by the way, shouldn't be complicated. It's what every family does sitting around their kitchen table. They figure out how to properly budget their households. Businesses do this all the time. A small business, whether it's good times or bad, has to sit down and figure out how to make the budget work. Washington needs to do the same thing. And that means House Democrats and Senate Democrats need to stop holding temper tantrums, stop making $1.5 trillion demands for illegal alien funding, and vote.
And we have resources from across our network involved. We will ensure every piece of intelligence and line of inquiry is interrogated. We're working closely with the security services to ensure we have a full intelligence picture in the coming days and weeks. Following events in Crumpsall today, I'd also like to ask the public to remain vigilant. Please report anything that doesn't feel right to the police and be alert to what is happening in your own communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's really nice. Thank you.
Do it. That's not where the country is. It's surely not why we should be here right now. But we stand ready to work. We've done our job in the House. It's time for the Senate to do their job and end this madness. Keeping our members tied together, united, focused on what we need to do as our whip, Tom Emmer.
our men and women in uniform, veterans, air traffic controllers, farmers and ranchers, federal workers and their families, Americans who rely on telehealth and home care services. These are just a few of the victims of the Chuck Schumer Democrat shutdown. All because Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries care more about appeasing the radical members of their party than working in good faith to keep the government open. They are trying valiantly to claim that they are doing it to fight for Americans' health care. But their $1.5 trillion wish list, which slashes funding for rural health care, as you've heard from both the Speaker and the Majority Leader, while giving taxpayer-funded health care to illegal aliens, tells a much different story. The American people see their political charade for what it is. The good news is Democrats still have time to do the right and reasonable thing. Because Republicans have done our job, there is a clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution ready in the Senate to send to President Trump's desk right now. The question is, how long? How long will Democrats hold the American people hostage to play their political games? I hope they come to their senses soon. Until then, we're going to force them to go on the record about their self-inflicted shutdown every single day. And the consequences will be theirs to own, and only theirs. With that, I'll turn it over to our conference chair, Lisa McClain.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Listen, this is really simple. There is a way to open the government today. Pass the clean Republican CR bill that we already passed. I mean, it's really, really simple. That's it. Just pass it, right? Goodness, Democrats have done this 13 times before, right? The same bill, 13 times before. It's really, really simple. So what's the problem now? Ask yourself, what's the problem now? Democrats want to make their most radical followers happy. They're pandering to the radical Democratic arm of their party. And you know what? They want to spend your money to do that. They want to spend your money on government benefits to illegals. Your money. Where does that $1.5 trillion come from? It comes from your pockets. And you're going to give it to illegals. Nobody wants that, except the Democrats. They're going to spend your money on a climate crusade. And they're going to spend your money on radical media outlets. Gang, this is your money. It comes out of your pockets that you work very, very hard for. And more than $1 trillion they want to spend on their radical Democratic goodies. What's more, they want to make you pay for that all while gutting historic investments in rural health care, which is really interesting, right? What's their talking point now? Oh, healthcare, right? Then ask them, why would you gut $50 billion if you care so much about healthcare from the rural healthcare? Right? Because they don't have any facts. All they have is talking points, right? And they can't remember what they're talking about. Right? They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They want to take $50 billion away from rural health care. Gee, I wonder why. And since they didn't get any of those things on a silver platter, they want to throw a fit, a tantrum, and they want to shut the government down. And guess who pays the price for that? Real Americans do. So I ask Democrats, are you okay with this? Are you okay with mothers on WIC unable to get milk for their children? Answer that question, Democrats, because with your no vote, you are voting for mothers on WIC not to be able to feed their children. Are you okay with that? Ask them that when you talk to them, right? And ask the Democrats, are you okay with soldiers wondering how they're going to make ends meet when they aren't getting paid? That's their vote when they vote for the clean CR, when they have a no vote on the clean CR. They are voting, Democrats are voting, to make sure that troops aren't getting paid. Ask them if they're okay with that. And ask them if they're okay with delaying home purchases for families and benefits of veterans, right? Enough. Enough. Stop the hijacking of our government. Stop the political games. That's why the leadership team behind me put a clean CR on the table. We didn't play any political games. We didn't add a bunch of our wish lists, a bunch of our pet projects to the CR. No, we said enough with the games. Let's put the exact same CR on the table that the Democrats voted for 13 times. And you know what they said? They said no. So if the Democrats really care about the American people, pass the clean CR, stop hijacking the American people, and stop pandering to the progressive, radical arm of their base. Thank you.
Right here, yeah, yeah.
Does the president have the constitutional authority just because of a shutdown to lay off thousands of federal government workers or withhold funding for congressionally approved projects that are already in
Yeah, he does. Okay, this is the way the system works. This is Chuck Schumer's decision is to hand, as I said on a couple interviews yesterday, the keys to the kingdom to the president, right? He has put himself in that situation, and it's completely unnecessary. The president takes no pleasure in this. The president did not want a shutdown. I'm telling you this from my own testimony. I was in the Oval Office. He pleaded with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries to do the right thing. Keep the government open. We'll talk about all these other issues later because that's how the process works. But failing that, because they have decided to vote to shut the government down, they have now effectively turned off the legislative branch, the Article 2 branch of, or the Article 1, sorry, the Article 1 branch of our government, and they've turned it over to the executive, okay? So in that situation, when Congress turns off the funding and the funding runs out, it is up to the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, to determine how those resources will be spent. He has that responsibility given to him by the Democrats in the Senate. They can't complain about it, and he doesn't want to do it. But in this scenario, what they have to do is make very difficult decisions. Most of the responsibility falls to Russ Vought. He's the director of the Office of Management and Budget, as you know. Whomever is seated in the chair at OMB during a shutdown has to do the same thing. Russ does this reluctantly. We had a 45-minute telephone conference with him yesterday. He talked to all the House Republicans. He takes no pleasure in this because Russ has to sit down and decide, because he's in charge of that office, which policies, personnel, and which programs are essential and which are not. That is not a fun task, and he is not enjoying that responsibility. And it could end today if the Senate Democrats would come to their senses and do the right thing for the American people. But if they don't, and if they keep the government closed, it's going to get more and more painful because the resources run out and more things have to be reduced and eliminated. Now, when he sits down as the director of OMB, he will obviously have a subjective determination on the priorities.